I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, agenda approval. Anybody have anything they'd like to add to the agenda tonight?
Not for me.
All right, I'll take a motion to accept the agenda the way it is.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Announcements. The public participation policy applies to all selectmen's meetings. A copy of it is on the back of each agenda, posted in the meeting room and on our website. The Alton Town Clerk Tax Collector's Office closed due to the state primary election held at St. Catherine Drexel Church. The Alton Town Clerk's Tax Collector's Office will be closed on Tuesday, September 13th, 2022. Public input. Seeing none. New business, Old Home Week update.
Thought Roger was supposed to be here, but I don't see him. I think Roger was scheduled to be here. Okay. Okay.
I only have 8 updates, sorry.
All right, well, I guess we'll scratch that then.
Really, the only thing I can offer the board up as far as the
Or Bob can, yeah,
okay,
yeah.
yeah.
Basically, everything is ready to go, to the best of my knowledge. I didn't make the last meeting because I had to go somewhere else, but the participation for the board, I think we got that pretty well squared away.
Yes. Yep.
Yep, I think we're good.
Yeah. And other than that,
And the books are out, the advertisement books.
Yes, I've
They
seen.
are,
Yeah,
they-
I've seen those.
Yep.
I've seen them. Yeah.
I believe there's still some downstairs.
okay,
So it's
Again,
moving
they
along
did a
as
good
scheduled.
job, the committee.
all right.
Every year,
They do an excellent job.
yeah, they spend
All
more
of them.
time than you think.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I start planning the week after.
and the ABA has they submitted all their paperwork and it's all set for the parade itself. And we received a copy of the insurance binder this afternoon. So on that,
Okay.
that side of things, on the parade side of things.
Thank you.
All right. All right, the fire department personnel policy changes.
Great.
Evening, chief.
Just to say, so the fire chief and I met a few different times with the addition of full-time personnel and staff and some of the classifications of the staff that he currently has. Going through the personnel manual, there are some policies that didn't exist that need to exist, some definitions for employees, things that we're required to have in place. And there's some other unique situations that are unique to the fire department schedule. So I asked the fire chief to come up today with the presentation of these policies to discuss them with the board. So go ahead, chief.
Sure. The first one is kind of a big one. The per diem employees, there's no definition of a per diem employee in our policy manual. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only department that has per diems. I think there's a couple other departments that use per diems, but we don't have a definition that really clearly states what that means. And so we have a definition for part-time, we have a definition for seasonal. And when I hire per diem employees, I don't really have a box that they really fit in, and I don't really have a definition to tell them this is exactly what it's going to be. We know what it's going to be. We have an idea of what it's going to be, but this just kind of puts it into words. One of the biggest things is the 1560, the 1,560 hours. They're not to exceed that. And that is a Department of Labor standard. And it's kind of one of the things we started looking at when Department of Labor had come in. It kind of said, okay, we got to start looking at this stuff and making sure that we're meeting it. And we really weren't. So that's one of the things that we need a definition to make that happen. As far as overtime goes, again, Department of Labor, we've been looking at the Garcia ruling, which was used and past town council had said we were using it right. newer town council disagrees with that, and the standard for using this Garcia ruling is for, full-time fire departments where they sleep at night. And it allows you to not pay overtime up, at 52, but no higher than that. But what's really supposed to happen is you're supposed to take an average of the hours that are worked over an 8-week period, and you're supposed to go by that. So basically what this takes is anything outside the schedule hours and say, that's what overtime is. So it's not 40, it becomes 42 for the guys that are rotating on shifts. And that just kind of makes it more fair. The uniform policy, that has been sitting there for a long time, giving everybody $100. $100 buys a pair of
Way back,
pants.
way back to the t-shirt days.
Yeah,
We get a couple
unfortunately basically we've been violating that policy all along, and we just get the people what they need. Spending what we have to get them what they need to be in uniform.
Mhm.
And then after that is basically all leave policies and holiday policies. And what that does is that takes the math from the 40-hour employees and makes it match up to the 42-hour employees. So it just brings everything to 8.4 hours instead of accrual at 8, which is a brief synopsis. And I'm sure you guys may have some questions. I will say, we've been working on this together probably since April.
Yes.
And he did talk to HR, the finance director as well. I ran these by her.
Chairman, on the uniform allowance,
Yeah,
of course, $100 is not enough. I mean, it's, but
barely buy a t-shirt for that.
yeah, you can buy 2. But what are we gonna do about it?
So currently what we're doing with uniforms is we're getting them what they need and we're replacing what needs to be replaced. It's no longer, here's an allotment of money to just do what you need to do with. We have a person who's in charge of the uniforms and make sure they get doled out appropriately.
Basically, you want to strike that out?
Yeah, just kind of eliminate that.
Just eliminate the $100.
Yeah.
Just, okay. Of course, you got money in your budget, so.
Yes. Yeah, we have a uniform, we have a budget line for
That's
uniforms.
$100,
And
that's, okay.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the fire chief's recommendations for the updated employee recommend policy updates.
Yeah, I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, chief.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Chairman, having noticed that Roger Sample
Yep.
is here, can we circle back around to item number
As long
1?
as the board doesn't have a problem with it, I don't have a problem with it.
No problem.
Mr. Sample, you want to come up and speak?
Apologize. Had a trench across the road and had to stay with it. So I guess maybe Bob told you a little bit.
He did.
Pretty much this year is like a carbon copy. The only thing that I would ask for is that perhaps we could actually reserve the spaces in front of the town hall with some of the police barriers. Because what happens is sometimes people park there just to take
That
up the
was a
space.
problem last year.
Yeah,
So is that the car show in particular?
yeah, just the
Not to
car
interrupt,
show.
but
Yeah,
just
just
the
the
car
morning
show?
of the car show there. Yeah, so like if maybe they probably have to go out Saturday night, because otherwise they'd be there in the morning.
Well, how about your committee picking them up and just setting them outside?
Oh, that's fine,
what
yeah,
I would say.
I keep looking to Ryan when I talk about police. Yeah, if they were made available, we would pick them up and, just if there was 2 signs, no parking between signs, I don't know if do they have those?
No, I don't believe they have any signs on them. I'm not sure what Public Works
So we
has,
just shoot
but
up to Mount Major and grab some to say no parking between signs?
There you go.
Well, we could work it out.
I would imagine we have enough stuff out there that we could block the parking spaces off.
And you're talking about just in front of the building?
Just in front of the building, yeah.
Just
yeah.
those few spaces?
We reserve spaces in front of the hardware store for the hardware store.
Mhm.
And then last year, we had a food truck here and we had a food truck down at the church or Bernadette's driveway. They find it's better to be together. So this year, they'll both be down here.
Right out front, you mean?
Well, they'd be more on the island type of a deal.
Or the what?
And Monument?
Yeah, the triangle.
All right, you using the whole thing around the Monument Square? Or is the inside reserved for the hardware store?
Well, the hardware store, the spaces in front of the hardware store, and I think there's like 3 spaces there, and then.
Right in front of it?
Yeah,
Okay, but what about the left-hand side? I thought that was part of the contention last year, the year before, that there was enough parking left for the hardware store and its customers. Because nothing should be parked on, I feel, on this side of the Monument Square, in front of that store. That should be left open for that business to run. I think that was part of the biggest contention, actually 2 years ago, and then again last year. I mean, there's enough room on Main Street for the cars show without taking up parking right here in front of a business.
Yeah.
I feel, but I don't know how the rest of the board
Well,
feels, so that's
no.
my.
I know it was an issue last year.
well, I also know that we left spaces there on the island last year.
Yeah, I think there was 2
Yeah,
or 3
so there's
spaces.
2 in front of the store, 2 on the island.
Main Street side and on that one curve, that doesn't bother me, but
Yeah.
next in that road,
Now,
there,
the
because that's
problem with
really private road right there.
Problem
It's
with the
not-
Main Street side is, I mean, that's basically you step out of your car and you're in traffic. So those guys won't be getting viewed. But perhaps that's a good place for the food trucks then, because then they'd have, yeah, thank you. That's a good idea. Put them both right along there because now they're serving onto the grass and works perfectly.
Nobody's walking out into traffic. The
Right,
food
they're not
trucks,
on-
Right.
the
right.
doors are
Yeah, 'cause
towards the
other
grass
side of
side.
the other side of the island is really useless, you
It
know?
really makes sense to be
And then
on
what
that
I would
side.
do is just recommend that you put cones on the left side of the food truck, so nobody tries to walk around on the roadside of them. So you block that off entirely for safety.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll put some stuff out there. And, I mean, I put signs all over the place telling them, you know, spectator parking, Church Street, you know, show car parking. And trying to police that is
The
like,
parking of the individuals doesn't bother me. It's when you start putting the old cars down there. That's what I don't want to see, because that's for a business. When you put the old cars down there, then nobody can use it because they're there all day.
right.
If somebody comes to your car show, parks it, there's nothing really you can do about that.
Well, we have to put signs there that says reserved for the hardware store or bust, because I can't police it. I mean, as soon as they come down.
I don't expect you, I wouldn't expect you to police
Yeah, because I mean, if we just leave it for them, as soon as the car comes down and sees a spot, they're gonna park there.
it. That'd be like me in my store, having someone park in my parking lot, watch the parade go by, I go out and ask them to leave. It's kind of an oxymoron. You let them sit there and park. Okay?
Yeah.
But as long as there's no cars there from your show that's on display, I think that's what was, to me, was the biggest thing.
Yeah,
To the owners, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't help it if I pull in, say, yeah, I'm gonna go in hardware stuff, I'm gonna take a walk downtown. You can't help that, and you can't police it.
that's the truth. That's the truth.
Last year, that was an issue. Though. The year before,
Yes,
that was the issue, people parking there,
yes.
spectators. Not so much,
Store, I'm going into the store.
yeah, not so much cars in the show cars,
Right.
spectators. So,
That's my biggest battle the day of the show, is getting spectators to park somewhere other than when we need to put show cars.
Right.
Well, the only thing they could do then is block it off and say it's private property. That's really private property, more so than public property.
What, next to the island there?
Going in between the island and by the apartment house and the hardware, store, that's private property. The town just happened to pave that, the taxpayers did one year, but that's private property.
No kidding. Hardware still goes right out to the island?
Hardware store goes out to the middle, the old Legion property comes to the other part of the middle. monuments, the old Legion property, the
Yeah.
boundary line came out there. So whoever owns the old American Legion owns most all that land in there now. And there was agreement made with the town to get possession of the monument square itself for in lieu of paving and also, I think, maintaining the grass.
Maintaining their essence, maintaining taking over the care of the
Taking
monuments.
over the care of the lawn in front of that. But that was all, if you go back and research the deeds, that is all on private property.
Yeah. Well,
But when we discussed this a couple of years ago, it was a little different. My recollection. Maybe it's something we gotta look at again, I don't know. But the property came, the parking spaces on the sidewalk right in front of the store, yes, those were part of the store. Store owned it. I forget exactly what it was. But I was under the stipulation after that night, parking spaces next to the commons there. Public parking.
They are, just to clarify, the parking around the monument are open to the public. They're not dead, those are not owned by the hardware store, but I think the two separation of what we're talking about though is, I do remember from being down in the police department, when the contention came up with the hardware store, the agreement was that the parking, both the spaces right in front of the hardware store and the ones adjacent on the island would be reserved for
and that's what we'll.
for customer parking on that. But you are correct as far as those parking spaces around the monument are far
I
enough
mean,
out of that
in
center
a
line.
year past, we sat here and we made that all agreement that that's what we're gonna do.
Right.
And then that's the reason why I asked if we could reserve these, because when we rolled up here Sunday morning, all the hardware stores cars were parked up in front of the town hall.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion at this point here that all the parking spots in front of town hall be reserved for the car show on Old Home Day.
I'll second.
And they will be outlined by barriers put on by the committee.
Yep, thank you.
Second.
All those in favor?
Want to handle the issue with those lots. 2 or 3 parking spaces by the common there.
There's nothing to handle as long as you don't put the cars in your show there, then you'll be set. Because that's what was one of the problems the first year it came in from the year before last year. There was some show cars around there. They didn't want that. He said we'd leave it open. There's regular public parking. But as far as I'm concerned, it's public parking. So as long as the ones in front of their store are open for them, then they can put signs there reserved for a hardware store. But if somebody's visiting your car show, pulls there, but that's public parking, how can you tell them they can't park there?
Yeah, but we're,
Now, as long as it's not anybody in your committee though,
Right.
parks there, you're fine.
You might
that
like
should
what-
be part of the motion.
That doesn't need to be a part of motion.
No, we
because
just,
it's public
we just
parking.
do it out of consideration. We did it before, we'll do it again. I mean, it's, that's something to appease. It's easy enough. We take the show that way. Not a problem.
Out of the grass area too, behind the building, or is that what you use for parking?
What's that?
Grass area over here, the church owns.
We actually we did one year, we had fire trucks in there, but yeah, we use that for spectator parking, the church parking lot. If I can get them to get down there before they say, pull over into, it's a nightmare.
All right, we got a motion and a second on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Roger.
All right, thank you. Once again, I apologize for being a little late here. I was just trying to put all this stuff down.
Roger.
Take your shoes off.
Yeah, we did. It's covered in mud.
All right, water department mini excavator purchase.
Leave our shoes on. Today, anyway. Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
So as you know, we were part of the fleet equipment bid that we did this early summer. We decided to hold off on going further with the bids that we received in the memo due to some of the pieces of equipment, vendors were unable to let us try them out. A couple other vendors had to withdraw because they were in the same territory as another competitor. And Milton Cat actually was, that you'll find was the lowest bid, didn't meet the specifications in the size. It was actually a smaller machine than what we have currently. What brought it to the weight was the quick connect coupler that brought that to the same weight as our current machine. Right now, our Bobcat is 17 years old and it has 2,943 hours on it. It's definitely starting to need more maintenance. We're chasing hydraulic leaks now. We've done replacements of the radiator sensors. We repinned the arms. We redid the tracks, the water pump, did some bucket repairs. We actually broke the tension plate on the track and had to get it welded. So, you know, it's getting a lot of work. It's getting more maintenance than it has in the past. But it's definitely something that we feel the department cannot go without and stay within a appropriate budget. After looking in the bids that we received, the same equipment purchase group, the highway department manager, the public works director, myself, the mechanic, we looked at all of the pieces of equipment, and I guess the consensus was that Bobcat was a very good machine. It has done very well for us. The machine that we are presenting to you and recommending is actually a larger machine. It's 12,315 pounds. It's a E60. The machine can use all the attachments that we have currently. So our compactor isn't going to go to waste. We're not just going to trade it in and not get any money for it. The trenching bucket and our other bucket all will match up with that. So we are coming to you to recommend to buy the E60 R2 excavator from Bobcat, New Hampshire. They're giving us $19,000 in trade for our machine. The price for the machine is $67,201, which this is a larger machine, keep in mind, and is, if not cheaper or right in the same price ranges as the competitors that gave us quotes for the bid specs. We're looking to finance through the municipal finance experts, which is the same group that we lease currently for the new 550. So the program that they're offering is that we would not make a payment on that until next year, which the payment would be a 4.2% interest rate. The payment would be $14,899.32 due on January 15th, 2023. So that would be due at the same time as our 550 truck. The only stipulation is trailers. I'm sure every one of you has either seen the price of them or have tried to purchase one. They're few and far between. We have, Thomas and I have gone out and looked at trailers that fit our machine, 14 tons. That one is available at Rochester Truck at the 16 ton, I'm sorry. Yep. For $10,000. I don't know if it's still available. We looked at it 2 weeks ago.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
What's the weight of your Bobcat that you're looking at? Did you say 12,000 pounds?
Yep, 12,300.
Why would we be looking at a 16 ton trailer? That's 32,000 pounds. So shouldn't it be more of a?
I think it's a 16,000-pound trailer, not a 16-ton trailer.
Yeah, it's a 14 ton, 16,000 pound
thank you.
trailer. That's why I said
no,
14 ton.
Not 14 ton.
Yeah,
7 ton.
7 ton.
7 ton.
Yes. Yep.
Has a payload of.
Yeah, it's the payload of 14,000 pounds,
So if the equipment's weighing 12,000, much
12,300.
is the trailer weighing? Only 2,000?
17,000 pounds.
17,310 pounds.
So it's a little more than that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did our homework this time, so. And we do have a CDLA driver now, so I think we have everything covered.
That's good.
But so that's what we're bringing to you. We would like to be able to take money from the capital reserve to shop around for a trailer.
For the trailer?
For the trailer only. We would like to lease the excavator.
Can I just say something real quick? If you can buy a 14,000-pound trailer for $10,000, buy it.
2 weeks ago, we could for 10,800, but I don't know if it's still
That's
there.
a-
I
that's a
didn't
good
want to
deal.
keep rattling them and not come see you folks first. So
What's in your equipment reserve fund right now?
the equipment reserve has 26,871 in it.
Beginning of the year, you have to expend how much?
What's that?
At the beginning of the year, you have to expend how much out of that fund? January 1st, you're gonna have a payment on the new X.
No, that's going to be leased through our operating budget
Okay.
Lease payments
Yep.
come from that.
on January 15th.
Okay.
So that will be in the 2023 budget, our operating budget. Now I have a couple different options that I don't know as though we need, I mean, so to give you the full specifications on this whole thing. As of today, we've collected $315,022, which is 60% of our operating budget. We have a remaining balance of $266,740. It's
So that's
August.
not growing much, is it?
This is our operating budget.
Your operating.
This
budget.
is how much
So
I
the
have left. of the
215 is
operating
what you
budget.
got left of your budget.
266. So what I'm hoping to do is if we have the money, we have a revolving loan for Jones. Well, it was a 20 or 30-year loan. The last payment is due June of 2023. I've already reached out to DES. There's no penalty for paying that off early. So what I'm hoping to do is have enough money to pay that loan off this year, which will free up the $39,000 in next year's operating budget. With the lease for the excavator and the truck that's currently worked into our upcoming operating budget, it'll actually drop our, if nothing changed, and we stayed at the 520,000, doing that would drop us down to like 490,000 for an operating budget for next year. That's, being said, I mean, I haven't done my budget yet. And things are going up, propane, gas, all those things. But if we were to pay that loan off early, you spend the money, you save the money on the other end. So
Doesn't
That's my
the water department doesn't have a revolving fund?
we do have that on the balance. Today was payroll and we're shorthanded. So from June, we had an available balance of 184,308, but obviously we just collected from our meter reads for incoming money. So that our balance for that revolving the revenue account is 184,300.
So that's the one that's not growing very much from the money that we found 5 years ago.
So the balance on May this year was 346, but we made a payment to the town within that time frame. So
No problem.
we did take 200,000 out of that last year to put it in the main expense as well. So
So I mean, a part of that money is.
so it was 300 and then
It's
been
other
moved around.
capital reserve funds, right?
exactly, that's I believe in the water main capital reserve expense. So it's just been kind of moved around.
So we don't have a capital reserve for equipment for the,
Yes, she does.
It's small. We
It's
had
truck-
just
truck
started
and
that.
equipment. It's just that it's.
Okay,
really
I got
recently
you.
started.
I got you. It just started. It's just
Hasn't
newly
built up.
established.
The revenues that have been left over from year to year, we've been putting in. little
I got you.
More concern.
The
was
school and Church Street project kind of
Off.
Offset things.
I got
moved
you.
things around a little
All right.
bit. So
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to allow the water department to enter into the lease agreement for a new Bobcat excavator of $14,889.32 at an interest rate of 4.28, and also allow the water department to go out and look for a new trailer, the excavator, up to $15,000.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
One question.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
That 428, is that a fixed rate?
yes, yep.
Lucky you got that.
I was just gonna say, you did
Well, the
well.
other company was like 6.9. So all the stars lined up.
Oh,
I
that's a
think.
good,
That's good.
Yep.
That's good.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
DPW mower and snowplow purchase.
These were a couple items that had been, actually one item anyways, the mower had been a projected replacement item for the cemetery. And the plow is to replace the 2015 V plow, which is on the grounds of maintenance truck. Last year, we had to Band-Aid and patch that back together. It's had a pretty hard life. We've transitioned all of those V plows over to actually straight blade plows for plowing operations. So looking to make that change with that vehicle there. Certainly something that as we move forward, we tend to, as we trade vehicles and move vehicles around, don't always give the plow. The plow either, depending on where the truck goes, or if we keep it, we keep the plow, for an example. So had good luck that way. Things have gone through the roof as far as pricing goes, but I think this will serve us a lot better than what we currently had. Here's purpose. So there's two items for action in this request. One is for the replacement of the new mower for the cemetery, which would come from the perpetual care fund. They have there for the cemetery, and then the snowplow would come from the grounds and maintenance vehicle and equipment, CRF.
I had one question on the snowplow.
Absolutely.
So that's a whole new setup. The blade, the headgear,
Correct.
push plates, pump.
Yeah, depending on the condition of the push plates, but that had been the price that was given for the whole complete unit.
Because it says here, off truck kit. I imagine that's
Yeah.
what that is, right? That's, and the blade itself.
Currently in that grounds and maintenance vehicle equipment fund is $40,810.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the request from the Public Works Director, the new mower. $4,093.28 to $5,755, and also for the new 9-foot heavy-duty snowplow package, $6,400, all motorsports.
Second. Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Old business. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, here we
Yeah,
go.
you're right.
Old business, fire department, engine 2 replacement.
Evening.
Gentlemen.
So as you remember last time, we had spoke about looking into the bidding consortium. They came back with some pretty good numbers, and I'm actually gonna let Pat kind of delve into it a little bit better. You have the numbers in front of you. Pierce, as it says in here, they just weren't able to meet the spec. Rosenbauer and E1, the prices are very close. Right now, everything we have is pretty much E1. They've been good to us. We've had good service from them. The Rosenbauer, it's not a bad truck, has a good fit and finish. They're having a little trouble with the length and being able to fit. And their other big issue is they want our trade-in early. So we'd have to go like 6 to 8 months without it. that doesn't really work. That's our tanker. That's our truck with 2,500 gallons of water on it. That doesn't really work for us.
Right.
I don't know if you have more to add. Sure. The only thing that I'll add is obviously when we replace these vehicles, we take a significant amount of time and effort into building them and designing them and thinking 20 years down the road, because that's how long we intend to keep these vehicles. Fortunately, just 3 years ago, we built an engine. So we mirrored essentially how we built that engine with this tanker plus more water. So that way we develop a consistency in training and operation between our members as well. So with that being said, that truck took almost a year for us to design and build in-house. This truck, because we're using a lot of that design, only took us about 4 months. So, but a lot of time and effort goes into, vetting the design and functionality of the vehicles before they even come close to getting on your table. So.
So E1, you can keep your truck as is till the new one comes.
Yep. That's huge. We have to.
That is
Just
huge.
satisfied with E1.
And that, yeah, that's the truck you guys had anyway, was an E1 also, you said?
Yep.
So you
Since
pretty much know it, like it's,
Had good
Yeah,
luck with them.
so a salesman had said to me at one point, a salesman sells the first truck and service sells the rest. There's really not too much we can say about our vendor that we've had for nearly 20 years now in terms of service. The few issues that we do have, I guarantee if I call them right now, they'll pick up the phone. And if I don't get him, I'll get the owner of the company on the phone. And they'll be able to troubleshoot and walk us through most things that we'll have in front of us. Yeah. And obviously they don't charge us for that.
Uh,
I mean, just a few weeks ago, he called somebody up on the phone. We fixed it over the phone. We had air conditioning issues. They knew exactly what it was and fixed it in 10 minutes.
Something to be said about good service, especially on emergency vehicles.
That's important.
I don't, now, what's the expected delivery date of this truck?
At this point, it's so the way it's written into the proposal is, I believe, 600 days.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a solid 2 years
Before we
see it,
Indices.
which is why this is coming to you
Yep.
essentially 2 years early.
Yeah.
Before where it was taken 12 to 16 months. I mean, now we're really pushing things out. So we want to make sure before we get into needing to do pump replacements or potentially more engine work.
Like you said, you carefully thought it out as to what you need for the future and over the 20 years and what you're going to anticipate, what you would need in the next 2 years.
The other big
what
thing
you're
that's
doing.
happening is these price increases.
They're going.
They're getting price increases every other week.
Mhm.
If we go now, we basically lock into a price.
and what,
Capital reserve equipment account.
Yes.
Town meeting all of a sudden gives you 2 years to fall budget and they don't give you any money. How will you pay for this for the commitment you're asking the selectmen to sign?
So there's 1.3 in there now. We'd have to move, if they don't want to, if no more money goes into it for other projects, we're gonna have to just adjust other projects and move them off.
I just want to make sure that you have that $853,000 when it comes due.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, and in this, I put, if we do 100% prepayment ahead of time, we save over $30,000.
So I was just looking at
Yeah.
31,000.
So
Which is a big
$31,000.
savings. It's also, I mean, it's a contract, it's a limited risk.
and it's
This-
bonded as well.
Yeah,
And it is bonded?
it is
Yeah.
bonded.
Okay.
There's
By
not
a
much
third
knowing
party.
where this economy's going.
Right.
Besides, it's gonna hurt the town this year. It's hurting a lot of people's pocketbooks.
Yep.
Especially when it comes to our heating season. If it starts hurting the pocketbooks of the taxpayers too much, the next thing they're gonna do is start cutting the town's budgets.
Yep.
And I just want to make sure if we make this commitment that there's gonna be enough money that come 2 years to pay for it. That's all.
It's, so the hope is to pay it now. And the money is in there to pay it now. If we pay ahead of time, again, we save that money.
You're saving that much.
And I agree with what Ruben's saying, but on the reverse side of that, everything is gonna go up and the cost of everything, but I don't think we can jeopardize our emergency services, go subpar with emergency services, regardless of whether or not the economy is gonna change. We still have to keep a level of emergency
Not
service.
asking to cancel,
Yeah.
all I'm asking.
Right, no, I,
The other question I have for you though, I have a hard time giving a company my money for 2 years.
Sure.
It's a lot of money They're using our money to make money. So I have a very hard time giving them, paying this upfront. I really do. Yeah, I think that was kind of,
And I think that's where the $30,000 savings comes into play. I'm not a math guy or a finance guy in terms of investments. So I'm not exactly sure what that amount of money would make us. If anybody else can
all I'm
weigh in,
saying
feel
is
free.
big company has been known to go under.
Sure, yes. So, and again, just to clarify, this is bonded by a third
I
party.
was gonna say,
Right,
it is
that's-
At their expense.
That's
The
money's protected.
If we don't get the truck, we get the money back.
It's
Correct.
only protected when I see the money come back.
I
Wait a minute, yeah,
wholeheartedly understand that.
that's not guaranteed.
Mhm.
We can be in a recession, a depression. All money's gone.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have a problem with prepaying in this era.
Now, if we don't prepay and we lock into this contract, does this 800 and, what was it, 853,221? They can't go up on that. We're in a contract with them for the 853,211, right? So they can't in 2 years say, wow, geez, guys, this stuff cost us this much more money. You didn't prepay it. So now it's gonna cost you $1.2 million to buy this truck that you ordered.
So when you sign the contract, you're into the contracted price. If we choose not to do the prepayment, which is the 3% savings, it would just be 31,000 more.
So
Right.
the
So is it-
853 you're showing us, that includes trade-in plus paying the money.
30.
up.
Correct. That is,
They're going to give you a lousy 3% off on $853,000.
again, it was just the options that we bring
Right.
forward.
I know,
So
I'm just saying that's a lousy, because if you're handing the company $800,000, they should be able to at least do 10%.
Was it an option? It was zero option of paying half upfront instead of the full amount? Did anybody talk about that?
they just offered us the
This
full
is,
payment ahead of time.
yeah,
It's
this is
it's
an
on
offer
page.
they offer.
Yeah,
Well, I know.
the savings was just significantly less.
Significantly less, but there was no
Say it's about
discussion on
30.
whether or not if something, instead of paying everything fully
I-
upfront.
Are we gonna make $31,000 off $850,000 over 2 years?
I don't know, but I don't know exactly about the math of it, but I do want to make the board aware of a situation right now because not that I don't think we should move forward with this and lock in the price. Personally, after what I heard at Wolfborough's meeting the other night, I would caution the board about paying up front. So I attended the Wolfborough's Selectmen meeting and they had, and I told the chief the name of the company. I don't remember.
Seagrave.
Seagrave. Went back to the town of Wolfboro during that meeting. I watched a public hearing where they asked the town of Wolfboro for another $270,000 on top of their contract price because they had their legal counsel go back. And even though they were under contract, they came up with a legal doctrine based on the amount of inflation right now, product costs, to either raise that additional money, or they were going to return the money to Wolfboro, but I believe they were already a year into their contract with them at that point. I was just quite frankly surprised at that. And I think a lot of towns and cities have been surprised at that. But I think my 2 cents worth hearing that, normally I would be in favor of the savings, the 31,000, but I think the 31,000 it's a big risk. I think paying the 31 would be better, just.
A legal battle, and that's gonna cost you money.
That costs you more money.
So will it be
Can I ask you, gentlemen, another thing?
compounds?
If you do not replace this truck in 2 years, is it dire need? I know it's up for replacement, but we've replaced vehicles that really didn't need to be replaced in this community. Just because they were up, we got to replace them. Take the forestry vehicle you guys gave up to the highway department, when they run another 5 years plowing, scraping.
To be fair, I would be very interested in knowing any downtime that particular vehicle had. Specifically with our forestry truck, it's a very unique vehicle. We only have one of them. So if it's down for a week during forestry season, that limits our
I
capabilities.
understand that.
So
I'm asking,
we,
but
in,
this pumper that you have now,
sure.
in 2 years, is it gonna be no good?
So we've noticed a decline in its pump test. And in replacing a fire pump is going to be a significant expense and significant downtime. Again, this is a unique vehicle. We only have one of them. For the tanker aspect of this truck. So with that being said, based on the NFPA anticipated lifespan of a vehicle, based on the town of Alton's previous experience with vehicles and rusting specifically after that 20-year mark, and the fact that we've already done some engine work on this, replacing engine sleeves, I guess cylinder sleeves, jugs, and that was, I want to say 6 months out of service for that. So
I hear what you're saying. I've got to ask a question.
there's a reliability and a maintenance benefit, obviously, to
What
it.
you say you're asking for almost $1 million,
Our return on this
2
vehicle.
years, and there's no guarantee except for a bond.
Sure. And I'll use engine 4 as an
Wow.
example. When we sold engine 4, it went for like 15,000 or $10,000 or $15,000, somewhere in that range. When this truck was new, it was like 400. So the fact that we're going to get close to $100,000 back on it,
The,
there's
are you
resale
gonna put a
value.
penalty clause in there on this contract? If it is not delivered on due date, they'll start paying the town of Alton 5% or 3%. Because our boat right now isn't in service.
Correct.
Because they're saying they can't get the engines or something. We should have had a penalty clause in that because they told us we would have delivery of that boat. So all I'm saying is, if, I just don't know if I can vote for this and say we give all that money up front. I really don't.
Right.
Unless I see what their contract initially says, and we have town council look at that and say, can they come back on us in 2 years and say we need more money? Another 100,000, we need another 150.
That,
Just
and
can't see why they need the full amount up front.
it's just an option. They don't
I
have
know
to.
it's
Just
an option.
Yeah, it's an option.
So right now, if we were to say, okay, we want you guys to get this fire truck and we'll approve it at $884,221. We put the $31,000 back into it.
Yeah.
In the 2 years.
Mhm.
So that, I mean, add the 31,000, it's 884,221.
Yep.
So that would be the price of, we could lock it in
That'll
at
be
the
payment at delivery.
payment at delivery at at 884,221 with a clause in there saying if the date that you guys are expected to take delivery, that truck doesn't show up, we start charging them to,
And that's not part of this contract. That's a different contract we can try working on.
right.
If we would probably need specific legal verbiage. Yeah. From
And I
our
think
side.
you would, and I think, I honestly think in this day and age, I think they're probably gonna tell you, you know what, we don't wanna do business. Just for the simple reason that somebody else is waiting to buy that truck, right? They'll buy the truck. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that seems to be part of the problem.
The market right now is crazy.
This price is
And
guaranteed
these
until
man-
Friday. I don't know what happens after
So
that.
this Friday.
Yeah,
And these manufacturers building this fire truck, they buy all their materials.
Right.
They don't manufacture them. And I mean, they do manufacture a lot, but they buy them, and those vendors are tying them up.
Right, they're at the mercy of their vendors.
Oh,
that's exactly what the problem with the boat
Mercury.
is.
This is 300, 730
That's a
days.
vendor
I'm sorry.
for the boat.
This one's 730 days.
So I don't think any company's
See
gonna
one.
sign a contract for that. Right.
Yeah.
But what's the actual figure here now? It's 853.
It's 853 if we give all the money up front.
Is
As it
that
is,
right?
and guarantee the trade-in.
That's right, with the trade-in.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and the 31.
Without the 850, without the.
Without
full
the
payment up front,
31.
You gotta add $30,000 to that.
31.
31,000, without the full, without the full payment, Bob, it's 884,221.
I just wanted to get that clear.
No, I understand that. I'm wondering if we can go back to the table with them
For what?
to discuss. I just have a problem with the full amount
Upfront.
up front.
I don't think we pay the full amount up front. I think we wait the 2 years and pay them the 884. That way we at least know what we're gonna, and if they come back to us and say, no, this is $300,000 more, you say, oh, well, keep it then.
Right.
It's not,
Money hasn't changed hands.
the money hasn't changed hand. If we
Money has
pay
to be
them,
signed in the contract.
if we pay them, they have our money. It doesn't,
Right.
and like Ruben says, it's sitting in their bank account, making them money.
Has the town attorney looked at this contract? at all?
No, not this contract.
I think they should.
Absolutely. With all contracts, this contract is the same as all of the rest of the trucks we've purchased. So I suspect that he's probably laid eyes on it at some point. So I assume he'll be familiar.
New attorney. I don't
New
believe
attorney.
it.
Fair enough.
You should.
All I'm saying is, it's like Ryan said at a selectmen's meeting, this company came back, they had to raise another $270,000. Well, that's the problem with a lot of these big corporations. They don't hold the contracts. Should have nothing to do with inflation. We just had that came in with our waste management.
Yep.
Shameful.
I think it's a necessary piece of equipment. We need to have it.
Sure.
And I wouldn't have a problem making the motion with that amended, that the attorney approves that the contract is good and we can,
Contingent on that.
and contingent on the contract. I don't have an issue with that. Because I think you guys do need it, and I see them fire trucks go by my house 15 times a night, so.
They said 1 year on your bill and we gave them money up front, but 2 years, that's a long time.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. So if you make a motion, we'll get the contract to Ryan to get to the attorney, and if he can sign on your behalf, as long as the attorney is good with it. But it's up to you.
All right, I'll make the motion that we, per our attorney's okay on this, we allow the fire chief to, it's E1, correct? Yep. To allow E1 to go with E1 for the sum of $884,221, which is the 31,000 added to it. So we're not paying for this upfront.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
And
All right.
Oh,
can he
I apologize.
sign on your behalf?
And, okay, yeah, and if you guys don't mind, and Ryan can sign on the behalf of the contract.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for putting the work in you did. I know it's.
Thank you.
Do you guys have the contract now? Better. Attorney's on vacation.
DPW Alton Bay parking lot and sidewalk improvements.
Okay, I put together a little bit of information. Some of it's a rehash, but prices go up, so I adjusted some of those prices. But looking to try to get some consensus of the board as to the direction as I approach budget and looking into next year. One of the projects here we've talked about has been the sidewalks at the bay. I think and some lively discussion as to what like the treatment there should be there. You see my recommendation. My recommendation goes solely based upon maintenance and construction versus aesthetics. Aesthetics in my business end up costing me money and time. But if that's what the town wishes to spend their tax dollars on, then certainly we can look at that. I can tell you that construction of brick sidewalks in a laid up brick manner, as far as having loose bricks laid up. I've done a fair amount of research on that. And City of Portsmouth, that was their director and highway superintendent down there. And how they reconstruct all their brick sidewalks down there, because they want to have that historical setting from down there, is that they actually build a road completely underneath their sidewalks. So what they do is they pull up all their brick, and then they go ahead and put down a base, compacted base, like they would a road. And then they go ahead and pave that, and then they set the bricks to the pavement. And that's of course with curb set. Very expensive in order to do that. Again, you're building
It still doesn't hold up because I was down there the last 2 months walking around and it's all on that
And it's
unlevel
and
and
I think
everything else.
that's another issue is, and they told me that they hate that. The highway department absolutely hates them because of the maintenance issue.
Sure that.
And they can't deal with them in the wintertime as well, because they're required to do the winter maintenance because the sidewalks are you know, completely pedestrian traveled, that situation there. So that was one of the concerns. Once again, that's the reason for, you know, looking at the recommendation that I've put forward to you here. I think it's financially going into it. I think, especially the times that we're approaching and facing, I think we have to, it is just mine, not a resident here, is that we need to be fiscally solvent in that situation we make, because we need to preserve and take care of what we have. Down there, it's becoming a risk situation. You know, I get reports relative to, you know, broken bricks and that kind of stuff. I think you've heard some of that as well. So, you know, trying to move that project forward and trying to be sustainable that way and fiscally conservative as well, I think is the way to go. It's just like, you know, I talked with Jack a little bit today about, you know, I have in here about pulling the actual granite curbing that's there now and reusing that granite curbing that has been done previously. And, you know, it's got a little bit of beat up on the top, but it really, you know, is still good curb. So, I mean, that, you know, doesn't make any sense to put forward a proposal, put all brand new curbing like we did on Church and School Street. It makes sense, I think, to, you know, reset that, have a good sidewalk with it. The other concern that came up, as you know, we've talked about, is the parking lot itself down there. The town portion, which is the, I call it the newer end, up towards the pavilion, not the bandstand and the railroad building and everything up on that end, is starting to show some wear with it. And so I did meet with the paving contractor and look at that and say, what are our options relative to that paved parking lot, as far as being able to go back in there, resurface it, and be conscientious about our drainage that we have there now, and make drainage continue to work. It's pre-existing. The recommendation was basically to mill it out and then do what they call a mill and fill, and do that. It's to do that larger end of the parking lot, as you can see with the cost estimates that we put together, is just as much to do the section that is the old town portion that runs along that section in front of the pavilion building, in front of Moran's, and then up into just in front of the diner area there. But there's a considerable amount of also private.
Yes.
In there, and between the maps and everything, Paul was helpful in providing some of that mapping as well down there. We did some calculations relative to the square foot, determine square foot costs, and like to have some discussions with those property owners down there about potentially looking at a joint project with a cost share that, and that we make one seamless project down there, do the whole project. You know, so they would have some financial aspects to that piece of it as well. So, you know, we would reach out to them and try to work with them on that. And potentially, I believe I'd have to double check with town administrator and then town council maybe, but you know, one of the things that may come up from those folks, since that's been condominiumized down there and everything, is people may not feel like their associations could absorb that type of a hit. And so they may be able to be a consideration for betterment that project, whereas they could be, that project could then be assessed back to them. You can't go any greater than 10 years on a betterment assessment or improvements to that property, but I'd have to double check, because once again, part of that is private. Generally, when you do a betterment project, it then all becomes town afterwards. I'm not so sure that we want to do that. I'm not so sure that they want to do that, because they have parking spaces, things that they control through their situation down there. But the idea would be to do a cost share and have them be part of that, so that they could have a new parking lot as well. because it's virtually has crumbled in the seam of things in the middle, as you've all seen.
right.
So I'd like to try to approach that, but I didn't want to go into any type of discussions with those property owners. So I had board saying, yeah, we'd like to have you start to pursue this and have these discussions and then be able to bring something back for budget, because I don't see that there is money in the budget without going to town meeting as a project, capital project to take on the parking lot itself. And if we get some groundwork done and get some, agreements hashed out, then maybe there could be, potentially if the board was okay with it, put together a warrant article, understanding that the warrant article would show some revenue coming back from these property owners contributing as well to the overall project to get that done. Sidewalks themselves, I think if the board comes to some form of consensus as to how they would like to address that, there would be funding in the current reserves in order to address that down there. And then also additionally, some other sections as well. I did put in here what could be utilized to try to maintain what we currently have in the section of sidewalk from the village store, basically down to just about to by Rubens, just before Rubens business there. I think it's 190.
199.
Right in that area is about 1,000 feet there would be to resurface that. And some of the deterioration of that section of parking of that sidewalk is the areas that traverse people's driveways. So that's where it's potholing. We're having to go out now. We've been called several times now to fix some of those potholes to take care of that. Plus it's almost like the sidewalks when they were installed, they were left down so that they'll actually be able to take behind the curb an extra inch of mix on top of that. We'd have to go with a fine mix, 3/8 fine mix in order to make that happen. That would not get us the 5-foot sidewalk. It would only maintain what we currently have there now. But I think that the project of the undertaking of going to the 5-foot, whatever the board would like to do, is that we would continue to still work towards that for the future in developing that future. But from what I can see from the right-of-way maps, and need to look at some of these agreements that have been brought up by the board, the property owners. I think that we got ourselves a little bit of a hornet's nest, or a little bit of a work that's going to take a lot and have some legal challenges as well for our expansion, even if it's a foot. One thing we do need to check with on legal is that if in fact, as long as, we maintain on the 4-foot in the area that we're talking about, the improvement in 1,000 feet, is whether or not we will not be in any kind of violation of the ADA
laws.
because of not going out to 5 feet. And I would want to make sure that we got a legal opinion on that before we did move forward. And if it came back, if legal said, no, if you touch them again, you got to go to 5 foot. And if that's the case, then, you scrap that and, we start digging our heels in, and we're going to have to pony up money and work towards that as we work forward, because I know that the board really felt strong that wanted to start out here at the village store and try to make it down there, make those sidewalk improvements, down to the bay, to tie everything in between the village and everything. So basically looking for some direction, how the board would like to have me proceed that way. And
Just, I have no problem with what you're recommending there, Scott, as long as I know what's private property and what's not private property. Because when I first reading this, without hearing the definition from the corner store down, it sounded like repaving from the corner store and right down through in front of the diner and right straight across as town property, because you mentioned pavilion as private, Moran is private, but you didn't mention that part from the corner store down to the diner as being private, that's why.
right. Yeah, that would all be part of it as well. I think you were at the one of the meetings we talked about on the crosswalks last
Just going to
time.
mention.
At the top of that ramp, there'll be some changes that'll happen there with the sidewalk and the crosswalk, which will require that to be blocked off, actually, up there. That access way of coming down that ramp will be eliminated because of the safety factor of that sidewalk, having a crosswalk there and everything. New Hampshire DOT actually owns all that, we found out.
Yeah.
Didn't know that, to be honest with you.
Didn't know
That comes across there and takes the majority of that ramp. It runs down to a point there out in front of the pavilion and the lines there. You go, wow, okay.
Because years ago, they used to put up, when I was a kid, the police department went down there with the owner, they would put up subject to gates and bars and block it off.
Block it off. So I mean, yeah, so that I apologize if the,
No, that's fine. I just so I'm more, because I do not believe the taxpayers belong paving private property.
no, I don't either.
No.
I think it always, partnerships and working together. on
Partnerships
it.
are fine, but if one party says, no, we're not gonna do it.
Squashes the whole thing.
Yeah, it could throw
Fortunately
it out.
for
That's the
us.
only reason why I looked at the betterment thing is trying to figure out some other options for people being able to, may not be able to financially be able to pay it. Or what I understand, they have an association of billion property.
It is.
No, the other ones are business-owned properties. They have one that actually owns multiple businesses down there. Whether or not they're financially in a position where they could make that kind of investment, I mean, we're basically talking, I think it's right around, I'm sorry, the estimated private section is about 22,000, I mean, depending on what ends up happening with costs. So
That would be divided up between
you
the
divide it
three.
up amongst those properties.
It's not that bad.
It's not that bad.
I think it could be, I don't want to speak.
I think
for
it's
people,
feasible.
but It's tolerable.
Yeah, I think it's feasible. Yeah,
Well, they could never do it if they went to just do their property alone.
that's right.
They couldn't get that price.
No, but doing the whole thing and everybody pitching in and working together to have that section done, I think it's feasible.
Well, the thing about pavement is if it's one joint laid down and it doesn't have a bunch of seams in it, it's gonna last a lot longer.
Which that's part of the problem down there now is because there are seams
Yeah, it's been patched and redone
and
and
redone and
Yeah.
patched.
I
Doing it
just
all.
had a question on the sidewalk. I think I mentioned the other night about, I'm an aesthetic guy to a degree. Those brick sidewalks do look good, but not in this day and age. But I've seen them take crosswalks and I don't know what they do. I think it's a vinyl they put over them and it looks just like brick, a crosswalk going across. They still have the white lines sometimes, but they have the crosswalks and looks like brick. And it's, town of Littleton, New Hampshire's got them on their main street when they redid their main street project. They did them all in that. Plus they did some sidewalks with it. And it looks pretty good, but costs, I don't know. And how long does it last? I don't know. If they're using them in crosswalks, traffic, snow plows, everything else.
Did you look at stamp concrete at all?
yeah, it's,
We're just gonna talk about that.
Yeah,
too.
and I do have prices on stamped concrete. Stamped concrete generally adds, I think on the last pricing that I did, brick stamped the concrete. Let's see here. So I had to increase all these, basically I put a percentage escalator to it to give you some more realistic, I say realistic cost, but basically went to the brick stamped, includes using the same textured mat. And I believe it was about 78,000 to do that versus the brush finish is 40. So it adds quite an increase. That also had pigment in it as well. So that adds to the cost.
Yeah.
By adding the red pigment.
Quite a bit.
I did, yeah. Just trying to think of keeping the brick look.
Well, that's
Right.
been my problem since the beginning, and that's why we've gone over this for over 2 years and discussing it. Some of the areas need work, other areas, in my opinion, don't. And I think aesthetically, people like the look of the brick and like the looks of that.
that's a
And
character to
I
them.
think the more concrete we add and we're just a brushed broom finish on the top, it is taken away from the look of our bay.
Yeah.
And it's just gonna start making it look more like a concrete jungle than a bay, and just make it look worse.
Yeah.
The sidewalk on the roadside on Route 11, of course, looks good. It's functional, it works as it should. But when you get down towards the water and you have people sitting in the park area and in the grass area, they like the aesthetics of the look of the if you will, cobblestone look or stone look. If we could look into, I would agree, I would personally be okay with looking into doing stamped concrete. And I think we'll probably have some pushback if we don't think of something like that.
Are you at the top of your budget on?
So what the stamped concrete will end up doing with the pigment would basically mean that, you know, it pretty much will eat up a large portion of what we actually have for sidewalk.
Right.
So you won't be able to do any other sidewalk improvements without more allocation into that fund. So
Don't we have two different sidewalk?
No.
I thought we
No.
did.
The research we did on that, there's only one CRF that was created. There was a couple warrant articles that went out that were not CRFs. They didn't establish CRFs. It was a warrant article just to allocate money for the Bay sidewalk or allocate money for a certain stretch of sidewalk. But the only legally established CRF, there's only one.
I've said it 100 times. I don't think we ought to pull up them bricks and put new bricks down, but the stamped concrete thing, I think, looks good. It keeps the aesthetics of it. You seal it, and that's it's maintained. You're not spending a ton of money, and not that, because the reason the bricks are the way they are is because we haven't maintained them. So because they're hard to maintain, and it takes manpower to maintain, which we really don't have the extra. I think the stamped is.
It's going with the stamped concrete would be
I
the only
gotta
other
kinda
way.
disagree. We would have sprayed the bricks. Once they were laid down, it deteriorated in certain areas. Two is if the granite curbing was put in the way it was supposed to be put in
Right.
originally, you wouldn't have the problem.
Collapsing.
It was shoddy workmanship over 20 years ago that happened. The granite was not put in, should have been in by specs. That's one of the reasons. We're not gonna get the bricks relayed. I've given up on that whole thought because everyone's used every excuse in the book not to
Just fighting back. Yeah.
It's not because we didn't have the help, because there's downtime that we could have gone down and redone sections, I feel. And I could be wrong in that. So at this point, pull up the brick, try to resell them to somebody. Let's put concrete down, let's get it done so we can move on to something else in the near future, because this is going to keep being here next year.
Right.
Right. It's a shame that we can't preserve them and redo it. I understand that the cost factor and the labor factor, and the time that it takes to do it. But I think it's going to be a shame not to have that look preserved. And hopefully a stamped concrete can.
How much stamp
make it
did
that
you
way.
get? How many prices did you get on stamped concrete? Just a
when I was putting this together, I only got one.
one. Yeah. All right. So
And that's what originally what past road agent wanted to do was stamp concrete
Mhm.
the last 5 years. Kept putting them in there. The past board of selectmen wanted to put it in. There was a big hoorah and a lot of taxpayers went down there. They did a site review work and then it got squashed real quick because so many people showed up. But they've been trying to do stamped brick now for the last, I'm going to say it's going to be 8 years. Because I was in the select when they had that public walk down there.
I mean, I understand the brick, like you said, but it's just the cost effective.
It's not, I understand that, but I just wish that we would have taken care of it and maintained it the way it properly, the way it should have been from the beginning, maintaining the in between the bricks, resealing the bricks. The ground is gonna follow the contour of the ground.
Yeah.
I don't think that's an issue. It's if the bricks are crumbling and sinking in between, that's an issue. So it obviously something has to be done.
Yeah.
Why,
I think
why can't we go that route?
What's that?
The brick. Why can't we, not the real brick?
Mhm.
Why can't we look into that? I mean, we're looking at this now.
Mhm.
I've been here 3 years and this is the first real money discussion we've had on this issue, a dollar amount. If somebody's looked at it, come up with figures for us to talk about. Now, I think we all agree, most of us agree that the aesthetics is kind of important to us.
Very.
But we don't want to go with the old brick, the old system. But why don't,
Maybe we have Scott write up an RFP to put it out for, see what stamped concrete's gonna cost.
Yeah.
Instead of playing cards around the table 15 times.
and if we got to put a warrant article in, do it next year with a warrant article. With the
I think
aesthetics.
well, we'll have to update our pricing, but I think based on what I had for preliminary for numbers before, even if you added 10%
Mhm.
of the numbers that I had provided before, to do the project with stamped concrete, with pigment, reset curb, all that, it was $94,029. Add, what we've been facing here with the increases, I don't know if it's realistic. I think it's more realistic at 10%. It may actually be more realistic at 16%, but because I keep hearing people kicking around that number as well. But once again, I think if we, if that's a direction the board would like to go in, I'm perfectly fine. And we can get the numbers and pull that together. I think your
I think that's. the way
sidewalk
to go.
project, the sidewalk fund would be able to help support that. CIP has been continuously contributing from what I understand. Certainly, we could visit that with them, but, and I think they should, because we still have several thousand feet of sidewalk that, the board has expressed wanting to improve from the village down to the village, which I think is certainly a very valid project to be looking at.
Mhm.
All does have some challenges, but
Yes.
that is a good project.
Not to be, but I also think at some point we should probably look into maybe making that stairs that go down to the docks handicap accessible as well.
I said that 2 years ago.
Because you get a lot of people that come off that with wheelchairs and handicapped people that can't climb those stairs. And
We're not in compliance.
we're not in compliance with ADA there either.
No, we're not.
So I mean,
I think that is part of the overall big project, when I had looked at the whole retaining wall and everything.
Retaining
down
wall.
there, and I had estimated that, a little over 500,000. We're gonna, we have the mason that's gonna be working as soon as we get the permit, hopefully this fall, to work on that first section
Mhm.
of the wall itself. And then I think part of this whole project is to then take into account where we have this and ramping that down, making some of those improvements to the dock area.
Dock area repairs of seats. and-
I think we should continue to pursue our professional folks there. I mean, I've made 2 attempts at that, but I think it's still worth continuing to ask and keep asking for that improvement down there. Docks. Wolfboro just did, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars docks, but making those all handicap, from what I understand, handicap accessible.
Yes.
As well. So, those are the types of things. I think we get this done, we can get that worked on. Docks are in need of some repair.
Yes,
We've
they are.
already got some repairs in the works now and fabrication to get that ready, so.
I just put a question into the reputable concrete guy and asked him what it would cost for stamped concrete with pig grit, and he said around $16 a square foot.
So we.
That's with color and all stamped.
And I can, based on some numbers that I have here, we can some numbers on that. So I think it's gonna come out pretty close.
Right.
What we were talking about.
Okay.
If the board, wants me to continue to pursue that and update those pricing and see how we want to move forward with that, since we have potentially have those funds available. And then look at working with those people down there at the businesses and the pavilion condos at Winnipesaukee.
Yep. Well, like Ruben said, as far as the sidewalks, I think we ought to stop kicking the bucket on them and at least get them done. We've been kicking the bucket on them for,
Last year, the year before.
well, like Ruben said, they've been kicking it around for what, 8 years now? So at least I think we should at very least have Scott get some RFPs, get an RFP out to redo the bricks down in the bay and or redo the,
I would agree with that, and we should do that. That's the only way I think I would approve, in my own opinion, is if we stamp it.
yeah, I agree.
The sidewalk's gonna have to be done first before you do any paving.
That's right.
Correct.
Yes.
So granted, all has to be pulled up and resubmitted. And
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if I thought, because I don't want things to continue to go up, if I thought I could get that turbine pulled and reset this fall and get the concrete work done, because we get favorable pricing in for that, and we could get it done, that would be great. Then the next phase, we'd be in a good position for the next phase with the parking lot. Once again, we'd have to hope that at town meeting, we'd be able to secure those other funds for the town portion.
Sure.
Does that need to be, it doesn't have to be a motion. That's just, we can have him send that out, right?
It's a general consensus.
General
Consensus of
consensus
the
of
board,
the
I think
board
would be
is,
fine to move in that direction.
Yes.
Super, thank you very much.
thank you. All right. Household hazardous waste agreement renewal. How are you, dear?
I'm fine.
Fantastic.
I think I've seen some of you almost the entire 20 years we've been doing this, maybe Ruben. But this has been an absolutely wonderful alliance between two towns, and it's worked extremely well. Great support from both towns for solid waste, the boards of selectmen. Laura pays all my bills for me. And we are about to start on another 2023, another 10 years, our third. And Ryan is very familiar with the program because he, for years, was there as a policeman when we do medicine collections. And he had it, we had a couple of minor changes, moving up the date when the budget's due to, mesh with the two towns. On page 9, number I, we just updated what the actual process is for small quantity generators, which are businesses, but they're also like Scott Kinman, Scott Simons, my highway department, when they want to get rid of 55-gallon drums of whatever, antifreeze oil, whatever, they go through as a small quantity generator. So that just reflects the process. The couple little changes were reviewed by your town attorney. The Board of Selectmen in Wolfboro, Ryan and I both went and saw them, and I'm waiting to get the signed copies for that. And I was down here to see if you had any questions, and I was certainly hoping that you would agree to go on for 30 years. I'm not sure I'll be here till the end of that, but that's 10 years, but.
So as Sarah mentioned, our town council reviewed this whole contract. The changes that were made were more housekeeping issues, legal language changing from board of selectmen to governing body, things like that. But the meat and potatoes of this agreement is the same one carrying forward. If it's not broke, we'll fix it.
Yeah, and the program
Is working.
well liked by the people
Yes.
in the community, in our community. I
It
know
has,
that's
it has
what-
worked well.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to accept the intermunicipal agreement for the household hazardous waste product facility.
I second that.
Any questions, comments? Being none, all those in favor? Aye. Thank you, dear.
Thank you.
And I will
Appreciate
have
it.
a table on Friday night, make more people aware of the program down here in Alton, so I will probably see you guys then.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Community Action Program, Pearson Road Community Center Agreement Renewal.
What you have in your binders is the copy of the renewal agreement for the CAP program. This agreement has not changed. It's the same agreement moving forward that they've been consistently using.
Yep, absolutely.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, they're gonna, well, Scott, I think had something he wanted to say, so as
Apparently
long as
so.
everybody doesn't mind.
No.
Okay.
So now I'm blessed with taking care of these buildings.
Mhm.
And I think before, I would just ask the board to consider tabling this until we've had a review, because we've had a couple issues relative to, and I'm all for, if the town wants to support But there's been a couple different issues that have come up, like when the refrigerator quit up there as to whose responsibility it was for the refrigerator. We've had, just recently, we had a bathroom door that was damaged up there as well. And I realize that's all wear and tear and those types of things there. Also understanding that, wanting to make sure we cover some of our, at least our operational costs that are involved as far as our custodial costs and those types of things there. If I understand, it's a very small amount. From what I looked at the previous year or year's agreement, it does have an auto, I think it has an actual auto renewal, that situation there, but maybe something, I wasn't aware that it was coming up until I saw it on the agenda, but that may just want to, I'd like to be able to afford the board as to what it actually costs us to maintain, at least on a regular routine care for the building. I understanding that, many other seniors use it for other than just Meals on Wheels and having the senior meals there, which I think is an awesome thing that you folks are able to have here. We had it at Moultonborough using the Lions Club, same type of situation. Town took it over, had to pick up, start and do the maintenance there, and those types of things. So I just want to make sure. We've had to do a few different housekeeping things. It might just be wanting to define some responsibilities that way when things get broken.
Oh, but the only problem with that is you got the Rotary uses it on Thursday. You got these guys use it every day. You have different groups that go up there. Who do you define as what damage? Refrigerator, that should be our responsibility because we allow it with kitchen uses. We kind of know what it costs to operate that. So we put it in a budget every year. Unless it hasn't been a true budget on that. But all I'm just saying is, you have so many different people using it.
It's hard to pinpoint which one you're gonna.
It's hard to pinpoint. I mean, the Rotary uses it for breakfast every Thursday morning for 2 hours. I think they have to be out by 9 o'clock. So the cat can come in. Stacy could probably elaborate more on that. She can, or maybe it has to be Kelly. I don't know. Kelly.
Yeah, Kelly.
I mean, I don't see a problem renewing this as it is. It's the same one we've had year after year. If Scott would like to hold off so he can look at it further, that's fine. Maybe for him, it's his first year looking at it as his department.
I had never seen it until we ended up having a couple issues up there. And not that they were, huge issues, but, it's just like what Ruben said is that, there's one refrigerator up there that the Rotary has. There's another refrigerator up there that's more of a commercialized refrigerator that the Meals on Wheels uses. And if in fact it's part of the agreement that we are to maintain the building, all the infrastructure and all the appliances, there may need to be, I just want to be, some of that stuff's starting to age. I can't remember exactly what that cost was on repairing that commercial.
So what you're saying is you'd like to be prepared for that stuff to break.
Yeah, I mean, either keeping it, that's all.
I have no problem.
I have no problem.
I didn't realize Rotary had their own, Cap had their own. I thought there was just one.
9 refrigerators.
Problems with that in the past with different groups having their own thing up there and all of a sudden something goes missing. This group gets mad, somebody puts a lock on a door, which wasn't
Right.
supposed to happen. We kind of resolved that and that was about 6 years ago. So, no, I have no problem. You want to hold off on this? I'll wait.
I think it's a good idea.
I don't think
All
it's
right,
due
let
to
him review
expire
it.
until the end of the year anyways, but.
I think it's a good idea for you to
No.
review everything and look at it yourself.
Because this is.
Yourself familiarize with it.
Yep. All right. I'll make a motion that we table the community action program agreement renewal. Thanks for that.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Selectmen reports. Mr. Holt. Mr. Morse.
We had a CIP meeting last week to go over some stuff, just to get, we didn't have a full board, but we have another meeting the 11th.
Wentworth.
Conservation Commission last week, they did entertain, they made an offer to a local forester for working up the process up at Gilman Pond for the trails and the management asset. We did find some camping gear compound down on Route 28 on some conservation land down there the town owns. They went in this weekend. 3 of them pick up the campsite and pull the trash out. That's about it.
Not at this time. I have more information in the weeks to come.
Okay. Planning board is, I sometimes hard to follow. But it seems like, they're starting to make some progress on some different things around town, and I think we're gonna see some different applications coming before us shortly, so. And that's all I have. Town administrator reports.
Okay, Mr. Chairman. Really, what most of my items for today's report are going to focus around the budget for 2023.
Okay.
I wanted to discuss with the board some different decisions to be made for merit COLA for our employees, plus what the board might have for expectations moving forward that I can discuss with the department heads. Trying to do as much preemptive work in the early stages of the budget prep so that we get to a better end result when it's time for all the end approvals. So with that said, first thing I wanted to talk to the budget to the board about is merit and COLA moving forward with employees. So in your binder, you should have had a copy of the Consumer Price Index, in the Northeast region. Should be in the back of your book.
Yes.
So go to the back for June's report. It's the only one that was out. We don't have July's yet. June's 12-month report is at 7.6%, which obviously is very high for the Consumer Price Index. Using that and just looking at it, I would like to bring the recommendation to the board, since we did not apply any COLA last year, to consider looking at 3% COLA this year based on the CIP or CPI, and a 3% merit based on evaluation. So with that said, before I brought that proposal to the board, Laura and I sat down today and went through the numbers. We went through the operating budget and wanted to look at, because obviously after we have this conversation, it's going to lead into the overall increase of the budget, what the board will be looking at. So just to give you an idea, with the board's approval of that recommendation, all of the lines that it affects, the wage lines, going through the operating budget, that's a 2.7% increase. Overall, it's a 2.7% increase just for the payroll increase, would be for merit and COLA.
And I'll be the first one to
If you're
admit,
offering, wait a minute, sorry, if you're offering a 6% pay increase, you're just saying it's 2% bottom line on the operating budget.
2.7.
Not counting anything else that's gonna come down from the department.
Right, that's payroll. I just wanted you to see
When
what
you
that
tell me
impact.
6%, it's a 6% increase in wages. Say on the bottom line of the budget, 2%, that's kind of misleading to me.
No, what I'm trying to show is that it's not some people automatically assume if you're going to raise wages 6%, it's a 6% increase on the budget. And I'm just trying to clarify that on the total operating budget and what's going to go forward to the people, the wage increase on this approval would only be the 2.7%. I know that there's other items we're going to have to look at.
It makes it sound better when you put it against the operating budget, 2%. It's only 2%, but yeah, that's all right. And I, because I don't agree with COLA, cost of living. I only agree in merit. If you do your job, you do it well, you get a full merit. I'd rather do a 4% merit than I would a cost of living 3 and a merit 3, because that's 6%. I never see it. It always seems like it's 99%, 6% across the board when it's at full max. That's my opinion, but I'll leave it at that, sir.
Yeah. My concern with the without doing the COLA is the falling behind of the wage scale, because without COLA, they're not going to adjust the max min on the wage scales. And then we're going to end up with a position where we're going to be reclassifying employees again.
I'm completely, I've stood by with Ruben with the COLA thing. I think if, like he said, if you do your job, your department head goes to bat for you and says, okay, this guy's been doing a great job. I think we we give them a raise, because I think that if, when you give them the 3.5% or whatever it is, the 3%, it makes the employee that wants to earn, they get their 3.5%, but it also makes the other one that doesn't, just wants to be mediocre, still gets a raise, so they don't have to work for anything.
Right.
That being said, the times that we're living in are changing dramatically. And people, employee retention is gonna be tough if we don't keep up with the Joneses on this. And I'm a firm believer in it, but I still think we need to keep our employees, because without our employees, the town doesn't work. So I guess as far as COLA, I think, do we need it every year? No, but I think this year is probably something that we're gonna have to very much look at for employee retention and to keep us moving forward with the min-max wage.
See, municipal government's very, very hard when it comes to that. How do you do it? Big corporations, companies, they do it on profits, profit margins. Different departments have profits. That's how employees, a lot of times, are rewarded that way. But how do you measure productivity in a town? Because there's no profits to be made. So it gets hard. And of course,
Very
across
difficult.
the board raise, COLA, whatever you want to call it, is, the idea of that is to maintain, kick your base up and being competitive with other areas. And if you don't give out COLA, you lose some of that. But I don't know, there's pros and cons to the whole situation.
With the way in our world, which I work in every day, people are stealing your employees every single day. Because this one says, well, hey, we're at a class together. Everybody's at a class. And this guy's like, well, we could use a guy and we're paying $30 an hour. Well, I'm not making $30 an hour. Well, come see us. We'll fix you right up. And that's the world we're in right now. So whether we're paying them $30, we still need to be somewhat competitive to keep our employees. We have good employees in town. Our employees are top shelf, and I think we need to keep them. Like Ruben says, and I'm the same way with the COLA thing, but I think we need to look at this a little different.
It's a challenge to try to balance between what you got to do for taking care of your employees and making sure that you keep your employees and keep everybody happy, and trying to maintain a decent budget for the town's taxpayers.
Correct. Sure.
It's a difficult thing because no matter how you look at it, there's an increase every year. It increases and increases and increases every year.
But at least you're increasing a little bit each year, and you're not letting it go, and then finally coming to the people and say, we need $3 million because we've been letting it go for the last 10 years, and now we're.
But the only thing I don't agree, whether you call it 3% COLA and 3% merit, that's 6%, or if you call it
It
a
is.
5% merit, it's going to equal out the same in the end. But if you're doing your job to your ability, you're going to get that 5% pay increase. You're there on time every day. If you don't have a problem with people showing up late,
Right.
Constantly every day, or they're constantly on their cell phones. They're only putting in 75% versus 90% or 100%. Those ones are putting in 90% to 100% when they're here working. They should be getting more of that pie than someone to just walk in and get a 3.5% COLA. COLA was set up for government employees only. It was never set up for the private sector because they had to have a cost of living. We all need a cost of living, but most folks out in the private sector, 99% of them, get it off by their evaluation of the job performance. They don't get a COLA. And I still think the government employees should be the same way. You do your job, you do it good, you get your pay increase. You don't get just handed 3.5% because you work for a town or you work for the feds or the state. And you can still keep up with that, the wage allotment for those positions, if you do it that way.
So would it be better for us to say, okay, Ryan, we're gonna say it's not a COLA raise, but you can have a merit up to a certain number, and then let the department heads come in and say, well, so-and-so's done an awesome job. I think they should get their 5% this year. Jim comes in, he's here, but he's kind of doing so-and-so, so he gets 2%.
The only problem with that, and then I'll show you, and it's happened over the years, they budget 100% for 5%.
Right.
I seldom ever see anybody below that. I won't say 5%, 3%. But I believe that's the fairest way. Departments have to come in and justify it.
If we look at past practice, last year, if I'm not mistaken again, I looked at the merit raises. And 90% of it, I forget what the merit was last year, 3.5%.
3.5%.
Almost all our employees got the 3.5.
Yes.
The only department in town that was real tight with this 3.5 was fire department. Of which I thought they did a good job.
I think the police department did a couple too, right? Am I not mistaken?
Yes.
Yeah, I think there was.
I'm talking on the overall.
Right.
You know, and of course, everybody says, well, 3.5's not that much either. No, that's what I look at it. What's 3.5? So, but when you get, I mean, it's more than I get on Social Security.
Better than a sharp stick in the eye.
But, it's,
Overall, it's,
I don't know what the answers are.
the two things that I just want to point out to the board that will happen when you do it this way. If you do it that way with merit only and there's no COLA, one, you don't, the wage scale doesn't slide with that. The employee slides, but they're gonna hit the ceiling.
But then they top out.
They top out.
I
and then
get
they
what
have
you're.
nothing moving forward from that point.
And that's
because-
why I'm.
until they're reclassified. The other thing on the bottom line, when we're having a hiring crisis, is that if you don't move the pay scale with it, that means we don't have the ability to stay competitive with the area. All the other towns are our immediate competitors. They all have the same positions that we do. And they're advertising them. What?
That would be your position to come in and say, Selectmen, we need to up the truck drivers hiring at this point here. COLA doesn't adjust that for you as far as I'm concerned as a business owner. If the truck driver went from $20 an hour and next year it should be 22, that would be the administrative department head coming in and say, Selectmen said, we need to adjust that up to $22 an hour.
But that being said, Ruben, is what means we'd have to, we have a step program that we go through that you would have to move the whole thing. You can't just move one because it changes the step, right?
It would change all positions, yes. But COLA doesn't do that for you. All that does is adjust it by 3.5%. What happened if it went up 7% like this one says? Well, you're already out of whack anyways.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not a realistic request to come in for 7.9% on a COLA. I mean, I'm trying to be.
This
you know, it's
7.9% is what the, or 7.6% is what the government says they're gonna,
That's right.
But let me ask you this question.
is what the people that are on fixed incomes and whatnot is gonna go up. That's what they're,
So just to give you an example, before we changed in 2017, 18 to this max and min scale, the town operated for 25 plus years on a step and wage scale that they established at town meeting. It was 10-year steps. Every department had one. And the way that it went, it was cut and dry. It wasn't, there wasn't an evaluation or whatnot. It was 1 year you got COLA. The next year you got COLA and merit. Same thing, every 2 years. So that was the premise of it, is that, you know, based on the CPI, and at that point in time, usually, I mean, we were dealing with a pretty decent economy back then. I think we only had one default budget in 20 years that I was here. COLA maxed out at 3%, no matter what. It didn't go higher than 3, even if the CPI was higher. But based on the CPI, you get anywhere from 0 to 3% on your off year. And then on your second anniversary year, you got a 3% merit and a 3% COLA. So it went 6% every other year. So in looking at my recommendation for the board, it was based on the fact that there was no COLA given to the employees. I believe there was an assessment of COLA to the max min scale, but the employees didn't get it this past
They
year.
had a chance to get their full merit though.
But they did, yes.
So they didn't lose. And that's what I'm saying. If you want to do a COLA, adjust the min max, but don't COLA and merit. Your performance is based on the job you do, not just because cost of living has gone up. I feel it is, you get a raise, I come from the old school, I guess, hard knocks. You get a raise, you deserve it. Not because the federal government down there said you cost of living went up 7%, we're only gonna give 3. Well, that looks kind of even makes it even look worse, that we're not even matching COLA. I'm still for merit. We can make a motion that we adjust the minimum match to 3.5% COLA.
But do we just leave it at 3.5% and not?
You can go to 4% merit this year, and I'd be fine with that as long as the review, you can go to 5. As long as the review is there, that a top-notch employee has a chance to get 5%, I'd have no problem with that. And if they all got 5% because they've done a top-notch job, then we got the best employees around. Everyone's done their job the way it's supposed to be done. That's fabulous.
How would that affect the numbers? I'm just asking. I don't know.
Everything we budget out of, say, a 3% or a 5% merit. They budget at the highest, and it's just like when you have, you're gonna hire a new employee, they always budget for a family employee, even though it might not be a family. Comes in, they always budget for the highest.
The problem with this is you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't on this situation.
That's the problem.
It's
I
just
always-
which side do you want to get crucified from?
I've always had a problem with this. Cost of living goes up every year. It exists. It's a problem, but we see the economy. We're having a trouble with that, and everything's increasing in price.
But I apologize, Paul.
Taxpayers are also getting a crunch,
Right.
and that's what I always worry about. I'm always thinking, I want to take care of our employees because they are good employees. They deserve it, but I have to keep an eye on the bottom line and for our taxpayers, because they're feeling a crunch as well.
Now, this index, is this actually saying that like the people that are on fixed incomes are gonna get a 7.6 increase this year?
No,
Because I don't believe that's even remotely close to what they're gonna get.
this is a guideline they put out. every
Yeah,
year.
that's the thing. I
And I
don't,
will say that the CPI has gone out of whack. Like, I've never seen numbers this high in all the years
No.
I've been here.
Yeah.
That's
Based on
because of the inflation.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So what you were saying is if they did like, say, the 5 on the merit, would there be any of the CIP?
no, the COLA,
COLA.
No,
I'm talking merit.
Oh,
and
just
that's what
all
I-
merits.
And that's what I'd said for the last, I
Same
think,
merit.
3-4 years.
which what Ruben's saying is you gotta earn it.
Right, no, I was just wondering, I didn't follow
Which is
that
That's
part.
3 or
rightfully
4
so.
years, I believe. Looking back, I can't remember the last time we did a COLA. It's always been based on merit.
It
kinda
has
did
been
away
based
with
on
COLA.
merit. We did a COLA.
Did a COLA in
about 2 years ago.
2020, I believe.
I'm sorry.
There was a COLA in 2020. It was, but it was only, yeah, but I think it was.
We did a COLA, but we didn't
Was it
do it.
2%? One.
We did COLA and merit.
Yeah, we didn't, between the two, didn't go over 5%.
It didn't go over 5%.
So what if we did the same thing and we fix it? Would it work if we did it a COLA and merit, like you said, every 2 years? We go to 5%, we do a 2.5 COLA and a 2.5 merit. So it's, if you do great and you did it, you get, every 2 years, you get 5%. And then the next year you get whatever we decide is the merit increase for that year. But every 2 years you get your COLA to stay with the min-max chart. Would
Because
that,
I'm trying to keep the positions consistent. I get.
I get what you're saying.
My job to come in here and do this. I just don't, I don't think the board's gonna feel it's really prudent if I'm here every 2 months saying, oh, now we gotta reclassify this position.
right,
It's
so
not-
if we move it,
But if you raise the minimum min-max chart by 2.5 or 2%, that would keep that in check each year. Selectmen could do that automatically without putting any more money in there unless there's somebody else comes, you create a new position. So if you did a minimum max at a minimum of 3% COLA every year, that's fine. But you still base all your pay scales on your merit for all your employees that are existing.
If the
Because
split,
that shouldn't change anybody that's already working for us, making the minimum max, because they can still make the max if you keep increasing it by the 3%.
right, the only thing is if there's not enough of a split, you're gonna have an overlap. And what that overlap's gonna create is you're gonna have people that have a year or 2 a year in a pay grade. and then you hire somebody and they're either gonna be right at or just above.
Somebody that you already hired.
Sorry,
that's been
that's already
working.
been here for 2 years.
But if they've been doing a perfect job, they can get a 3.5 to 4% merit each year. They wouldn't even be close to that though. Because you'd only be adjusting it by 2.5 to 3%. But if they gave them 4% merit every year, they'd still be above that. And if that came in, then it'd be up to Mr. Kim to come in and say, we're getting too close here now with the minimum chart. And the guy with 10 years isn't up enough now because of the way the merit structures have done. I do not feel, a lot of times people come complacent in their job and they just said, I'm just gonna go right along now. They don't try to go that extra effort and say, gee, Scott, I saw this up on the road. I think we can save some money here if we do it this way. We don't give them that incentive to do that by just offering COLA. Becomes very complacent, just, I'm gonna get 3.5% every year COLA, no matter what I do.
My only thing that I think that, and just kind of being a devil's advocate here, but what Ryan's saying is you got somebody that's been working for us for 8 years, a truck driver that's been working for us for 8 years, and he's making $24 an hour. But in this day and age, you can't hire a truck driver unless you're going to give him $28 an hour. So now we got to hire this guy at $27 or $28 an hour. But this guy that's been here with us for 10 years and been doing a good job and getting his merit is only making 26. This way it moves everything, keeps everything going consistent.
And keeps it in check.
And it just keeps it in check is what I'm getting from it. I mean, if it's.
And you still.
Yeah, that's all you're trying.
And you still have a merit system.
And you still have a merit system
I mean,
go off. And Ruben, I like I said, I've been on the same train as you forever, but I just, the way we're going, we got to do something because we need to keep the people that we have.
But then does it make sense to do exactly what we were just talking about, is going every other year with COLA?
That's what
That would
I'm
mean
wondering.
this, we didn't do it last year, that this year would be a COLA.
And then the
that's
following
the
year, we
start.
wouldn't do a COLA, but we'd do the merit part of it. Would that work, Ryan? Would that keep everything checks and balances in line?
Yeah, if the numbers are high enough. As far as we're skipping years. When I say that, I'm meaning like if you skip a year and then you're like, well, we're gonna put, 0.5% or 1% in there. I'm not saying that you'd have to put 6 or 7% in COLA or anything like that.
Have to match it.
I will say, I mean, most of my,
You'd have to
my
match it
Have
in
to
merit,
match
yeah.
it in merit the
Yeah.
next year.
Most of my experience and what I'm going off of is the pay scale that the town had adopted and utilized for many, many years. And it was very successful. In my experience with the police department and everything else, it had always held up and worked well. It kept us above when it came to neighboring communities. We always had sort of the pick in the police, the experience over there as far as certified officers, things like that. And that pay scale and that regimented lookout or projection is what really was a retention tool and a hiring tool for people, because to be able to see where their career path could take them.
what did you suggest at the beginning for percentages? Again,
3% merit, 3% COLA.
3 and 3.
Yep.
I put a motion on the floor. I make a motion. We approve this year a 2% COLA, a 4% merit.
A 2% COLA and a 4% merit?
Two and four.
Something I'd also,
No, go ahead.
I'd like to possibly consider is each department have that money in their budget.
For the increase.
This motion, each department would end up with that. That money's gonna be in their budget. Now, it's 4% merit. I say, that's what he's budgeted, your department head or she. they can give out a 5 and a 2. Just a 2 to a person and a 5
Yeah, but that goes to 7.
for an exceptional employee. As long as they stay within their budget figure. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I'm a little confused, but,
Because that's basically what they do now.
because I thought we were going with a 2 and a 4, but now you're saying
Well,
7.
Basically saying if you had one employee as your department head, have one employee, instead of him getting the 4% merit, he's only going to get 2. You'll have 2% still left in the budget. You can give to that exceptional employee and bump them up to a 6%.
Oh.
Well, it's a numbers
Playing
game.
numbers, yeah.
But that's a dangerous game to play too.
Well, wait a minute now, you just talked about you.
No,
You want to be able to reward employees.
I did, and you're absolutely right, but I also said that we need to retain them as well.
So you absolutely feel as though
Well, when you can
6% is necessary.
Reward employees
I think for the,
financially.
seeing how we
you
were
retain them.
3.5 last year. Yeah, they do, especially based on the CPI. I mean,
I like the idea of staying at 5% and doing 2.5 and 2.5. And do that do that this year. Or talk about further, I know you have a motion on the table. You have a motion on the table, right?
No, I haven't had a second.
I'll second it for discussion purposes.
Thank you, because I was just gonna do that. So if we did the 4 and a 2, that would be just for this year, and then next year there'd be no COLA? Or are you saying,
Well, it all depends. The board votes on this every year.
Oh, and every year.
Unless we have some kind of a policy. I mean, it could be a complete change of board next year. I don't know. Or the year after.
So if we vote on this, the 4 and 2, this is for this year, we can always go back next year and say, okay, last year worked out good, but we don't need to go that high, or we can.
Well, that's.
It's gonna come before you next year anyway. So
Correct.
he's gonna bring it to you and I guess. next
It's
year-
gonna do the same thing as we're doing right now. We're just gonna,
it's kind of like what we discussed a minute ago with going, I see your point of wanting to go to 6%, 3 and 3. I see your point of going 4 and 2 to make it, but I was entertaining the idea of not going to 6, but going to 5 or 5.5.
or we go to 6 and put it on our department heads to actually make the right decision and put a good review down for their, you know what I mean? They're there, it's there for their ability, and you,
To go with a 4% merit and 2 COLA?
yeah, and then let the department heads do their jobs and come to us and say, hey, so-and-so did a great job, we should give them the 4%.
I agree with that. I'm not sold on the giving like the 5 to, you know what I mean, like the
Like
dividing it
2.5
up.
and
Yeah.
2.5.
No,
Right, yeah,
no, hit the extra, if somebody gets an extra dot, like,
Yeah, I know.
yeah, I'm,
No, that's a numbers game that
Yeah.
starts to get confusing.
yeah.
I'm okay with the 2 and 4, or however you want to structure it. Either way, 3 and 3, the way Ryan doing it is the same thing. It's just, you're just playing with numbers at that point.
It is the same.
Dollar-wise. But I believe.
Either way, it's an automatic
Either
6%.
way,
6%.
well, as long as you, but you're, the 4% you can adjust either direction, you know what I mean? You can
Correct.
say, because the 4 is the merit end of it, you can say, well, Jim's only doing a good job, so he gets 2.
He only
and-
gets 2.
And Bill's
I
Bill's
get
doing
it.
a great job, so he gets 4.
Yeah.
But everybody's gonna get 2.
Jim shaking his head.
Jim, you're only getting 2.
I agree with the 2 to 4.
All right, well, all you gotta do, if there's no more discussion, we'll put it to a vote. Any more? All right, all those in favor?
Right?
I,
Aye.
All right,
Opposed.
Okay, so the next question for the board, well, easy one is, there's a staff report in there for oil and propane bidding. You look down at that, there's recommendations for approving Irving for oil at 3.893. It's just better than what we had originally gotten. They had actually came back and dropped their price for the year afterwards. Came down significantly, actually, from the first time we called. And then Eastern, we were able to have some conversations with them and get them down to 191 a gallon for propane.
191.
Yeah, they started at 250, so 240, so they came down significantly.
Oh, yeah, that was Easton.
That was Eastern, yeah. And as you can see, a lot of companies aren't even, they're either not non-responsive or they called back and politely said, we're not bidding prices.
Right.
Volatility of the market.
So I said it's
What
gonna
was the
get
Irving
scary.
oil and propane, Ryan? It says 822 to 723. Was that of this year, from last year to this year, or this year to next year?
This year to next year, 822 to 723.
So that was 89, 2 cents less a gallon,
Yes.
Eastern. Any reason you didn't recommend them?
Oh, and the issue we ran into with Eastern is the fact that Eastern owns all of our buried propane tanks. We don't own them. The only one we own is Town Hall. So that means that in order to, if we change companies, we got to factor in the cost of either buying the tank out.
That's all our tanks buried at. I didn't know we had any buried at. First I ever heard of it.
Police department's got one buried. Town Hall's got one buried. The other ones, there is.
I mean, it's nothing for a propane company to buy the tank back from the other company. Because that happens all the time. But they usually look for a little bit longer contract.
Right.
And
Yeah, Melinda, I had Melinda.
I'm only talking 2 cents, so I'm not worried about it. It's just that one shows over the other, and I just wanted to, that's what.
Yeah, it really came down to the tanks.
I still
Some of the
think on
tanks and they-
propane, something like that, especially you got buried tanks. See if you offer them a 3-year or a 5-year contract, that they give you a better price.
Mhm.
Certain index increase each year. I know out of my 8 places, that's what I do. I end up having a 3-year contract.
Will they honor, and I'm just asking as a,
Irving, I will say, has honored their contract from everything going high on me. They've kept their contract. Rhymes did the same thing. I never had Eastern. But I'm just saying, maybe if you extend it out on the propane, because propane's not as volatile as the oil is.
Mhm.
Propane is actually still low.
Yeah, people were more willing to quote out propane than were oil.
yeah, I bet.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, because I've been with my oil company for 11 years and this is the first year they said, yeah, we're not gonna, you can't lock in.
No, we tried to.
Most of them, man.
Either way, it's
Especially the
389
Be
is
a
a lot
tough
better than
winter.
585 2 months ago.
Yeah. And we're really, when this was redone and updated, they had already come down from, they were for something originally, and they had called back on their own and reduced their bid price.
The only reason they lock municipalities in is because they buy so much.
Yeah.
And the money's good.
That too.
Yeah.
Pay our bills.
Chairman, I make a motion to from propane at a number 91 a gallon propane, and it's Irving oil 3.893 a gallon. Is that correct, Ryan, for oil?
The 3.89, yes.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
The next question for the board is sort of like to get a consensus of the board, what your thoughts would be. As I said, I'm going to try to do as much work. I had a department head meeting with all the department heads last week, and we discussed moving forward. My discussion with the board, and what I'm going to be looking to do is with the first meeting with them and their budgets. Obviously, you know, balancing retention of employees with the impact to the taxpayer, which is going to, you know, obviously they're feeling it. Everybody's feeling it, and they're going to feel it, you know, going to the ballot. So I'm looking for some sort of idea from the board as to what you would think or strive for an overall increase. That's why I kind of wanted to let you know, and that's where I was going with that 2.7 on the overall budget when we're talking about Maricola. Because above and beyond that, we know we're going to have some fuel increases and things like that. I have instructed all the department heads to look at, and actually you heard an example of it earlier when Courtney was up here talking about that last payment. I want to look to see if we can make any of those payments before the end of the year, utilizing any surplus that departments might have to make sure that that doesn't carry over into an impact in the 2023 budget. I think if we're conscious of that and we try to work as much as we can to pay those things down, I got the MS 535, which is the financial report of the budget, the audit basically back, DRA, and we put 375,000 back into the unassigned fund balance this year, which is good because we're back up over,
We needed
about
to
4
after
point.
what we spent paying off last year from.
What's that?
We needed to.
Yeah. So, but we're back up over 4 million. We're about 4.4 right now. But with that said, I want to try to utilize as much of the funding that the departments have right now in the operating budget to pay down things in advance or any large projects or purchases that aren't going to go to warrant article, in attempts to keep that number, that overall percentage, more palatable for the taxpayer as it moves forward in the budget process to get to you folks. So we don't get into a point where at the end, we look at everything when it's all totaled out and we see that there's a 11% increase or something along those lines. I don't want to see any numbers like that moving forward. So with that said, where would the board feel comfortable? If you know what your thoughts are. And look, like I said, I'm just looking for a consensus.
Myself personally, I can't give you a number because the way inflation is this year.
Okay.
Departments are gonna look, department heads to me are gonna have to look at it and say, all right, this is where my budget, I want my budget to be, but because the costs are inflated this high, I'm gonna have to find some way, we're gonna have to not do something next year.
Mhm.
Something's gonna
Yeah.
have to.
And to me, myself, this year, I'm looking at the department heads. That control the professionals. Selectmen doesn't need to do everything anymore. Let them come in and say, this is what I can live with this year.
Okay.
Because I can't tell you, I want to see a 5% increase this year because it's almost impossible.
It is impossible.
Just on the bottom line, it's 2% just for wages.
Yeah.
You haven't seen your insurance yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that insurance could almost, between that and a few other things, could add up to 1%, you're at 3, so 5% could be going right out of the window this year.
Paying things down on each department is a big help.
Yeah.
Each department to do that. I think that's a great idea.
See, our fixed costs and then department heads' budget costs are two different things. Budget. Fixed costs, we don't have much of a control over. And they're gonna increase.
Mm-hmm.
They always do every year, the electric bill, and you name it.
Well,
Now, the department heads make their budgets out. During their meeting with the administrator, should be made aware of what he expects them to come in with. I say, tight a budget as you possibly can in your operating.
Just remember, this is, and I agree, but this is where we start falling behind when stuff like this happens. Because we bottleneck the budgets up and we say, okay, we don't want you to go any more than 2% or whatever it is, or however much you can live with. And then they come in with a budget and say, this is the budget that we can make work. And then we say, all right, cut 10% off it because we don't like it. If when I do my budget, I don't pad my budget at my work. When I put that budget down there, that's what I need to operate my department.
And the people that look at that budget should be able to figure that out.
Correct. And it's all how you lay your budget out and explain it to people. So if you come to me with a reasonable budget, there's going to be increases this year. I do not care how you do it. There is going to be increases.
But your department heads, a lot of those line items, they have no control over.
Right.
But ones they have control over.
But I agree. But if you come back and say, Mr. Kinman, he comes to us and says, I need $1.5 million to keep the road up to par and keep everything going. And we say, well, this year we can't, we don't like $1.5 million.
Yeah.
We want it to be 800. Well, there's that amount of money that road's not getting. So in 4 years down the road, you do that every year and now you're right back to where you started again. You're screwing yourself, excuse my French, but
That's being realistic.
Yeah.
We have to
I
be
just,
real-
I think we're moving forward and I agree that we're in some different times, but I think we need to, even if it's a little bit every year, I think we still need to move forward. Because once we start going backwards, then we gotta play catch up again.
And I think,
You can't kick the can down the road.
Correct.
Just can't keep doing that, but you can keep it under control.
Yep.
And you can make cutbacks where you don't need certain things that are not needed by the department. And that's what you're looking for, to have a little bit of control on your budget. And if you can cut it down at all. Sometimes the budget comes in and it's right on.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that happens. The budget's right on or pretty close to where it should be, and it's approved right then and there.
Right.
But if anything can be cut or keep an eye
Reduced.
on, reduced in any way, it should be tried.
Yeah. No, and I agree with that. I do. I just think that we can't go into this expecting that everybody's gonna come in with a flat budget because it's not going to happen. You're not gonna get a flat, you're not gonna get the same budget this year as you did last year. It's not gonna happen. Unless you cut out other stuff that we should be doing.
Still have to get things done.
Stuff still has to get done.
Still have to get things done. We still have to do everything that we normally do to upkeep, maintenance, and
I honestly think this year, we're gonna have to go at this a lot different than we have in the past 3 or 4 years, because it's a lot different. We're gonna have to look at things
Mhm.
from both sides of the court.
everybody's gonna feel the pinch this year.
Yeah.
so with that said, basically not hearing anything with that. I mean, obviously, we're gonna go into the intent with the department heads is to go in and do everything we can. What I was sort of trying to get at was in the years past, or the last few years, we've gotten to the point where budgets have been approved and then we get to the end, saw the bottom line.
And it scares everybody.
And then there's some sticker shock there, and then we go back and we cut. I'm gonna try to do that moving forward first, before it gets to folks, so that when you do see that, we have a more agreeable number at that point, or
Take the sticker
percentage.
shock up front
Yeah.
instead of in the back.
Oh, right.
So we're gonna work on a couple of ways to sort of try to mitigate that moving forward.
Well,
I
the
don't
reason
really-
we had that sticker shock, we were never given bottom line figures. We'd start our budget process with 1 or 2 budgets thrown at us to
Mhm.
approve. Right? Then we'd approve them. I was always given all the budgets with the bottom line, the projected bottom line. And then you went from there. Way it was done since I've been here. We're given 1 this night, 2 this night, 4 this night, and we sit here, yeah, well, that sounds good, they could have, the next thing you know, the increases starting to get heavy.
I agree with that, Bob, but
Oh,
what, the increases that you're seeing is no different in front of you. It doesn't, whether you get it today or you get it tomorrow, the increase is the same.
But the problem, there was no problem with those 2 years of budgets. At the end of the night, you knew what department head's budget was gonna be. So
Right.
if you did add up on your own, I added up on my own. I knew what it was when we
Right.
got to the end. There's no surprise. But it's just, for some, it was a surprise, so be it, so be it. So this year, we just asked department heads, do the best you can with what you got this year.
I agree.
The
You
price-
bring us an honest budget and we'll give you an honest evaluation of it.
That's all I can ask for. Is just
Okay.
do the best you can with your budget.
Yeah.
And present it in a timely fashion so that we can.
We're not the only ones sitting here that realizes that things are costing more right now. Believe me, everybody knows. So if you come with us with an honest budget and say, this is what I can work with, and we look at it and say, fair enough. And if we see something that you go down through and say, well, geez, can you move that a little bit? Then that's something we can do right here at the table, but let's bring us your budget. And like I said, you give us an honest budget and we'll give you an honest evaluation of it. And do the best we can for the town and keep the services moving.
That's all we can ask.
Yeah.
So one last question about the process moving forward this year. A suggestion, and wanted to see what your feedback was on it, is to streamline things a little bit and make them maybe go a little bit smoother. Would the board have objections to holding like budget workshops joint with the budget committee. With the but so that when the department head is presenting their budget, they're presenting it to both boards at the same time.
I wouldn't mind that, but I usually see a long night because you're gonna have the Board of Selectmen asking that question, you're gonna have the Budget Committee asking that question. I don't agree with that one.
Okay.
After all the years I've done it, to me, no, I can't see it, but
Have you ever had an experience where you had the budget committee at the same time?
no, but I know the questions we all ask, or over the years, what other selectmen have asked. You get double the table here. That's gonna add to me, it would add to the process, but if you guys want to try that, be my guest.
Is it a workshop that we could have that?
Which just budget.
Oh,
I was
just
thinking
the
of
budget
just
and the-
budgets, not an agenda.
So we're not, because if we've got and nothing against but at that meeting, if we've got 30 people in the crowd ask, it's going, like Ruben said, we're gonna be here till 2 a.m.
Oh,
trying to figure out.
you'd have us 5 here, then you'd have the 9 from the Budget Committee, right? 9? 7.
If they show
Lately, it's
up.
been about 3 or 4, but.
Yeah, because I didn't make the last one, but
It is what it is.
I mean,
That's neither
it's
here
a
nor there,
workshop,
right?
it's a workshop and each budget is presented. Hopefully we can come to agreements relatively quickly.
Well, and I
But I
kind of,
know what you're saying, it could get lengthy.
like the idea because it's no, he said, she said, we're right here to hash it out right at the table. You know what I mean? It's like, well, the budget,
It goes back and forth.
it goes back and forth and the budget committee's like, well, the selectmen said this and no, that if we're sitting right here looking at each other, that doesn't go on anymore.
give it a shot, try it.
Let's try it. It's either gonna work or it's not.
We'll know after the first
Yeah,
meeting.
we'll know after
We've been
the.
throwing stuff at each other. then-
Let me call,
Sounds like that 5-minute rule.
Yeah, good call.
let me call
Be
the
a lot of
farmer for a
point of
second cut hay those nights, all right?
Yeah.
What are we gonna do though with?
Who's in charge?
Normally, the selectmen approve the budget that night. Or they accept it,
Right, but
or,
I think what we're doing is we'll have all the budgets here.
yeah.
And we'll sit with the budget committee
Yeah.
and we'll hash it out. We'll take this, we'll say, okay, here's the highway budget. Let's hash it out. Let's figure it out right now.
Well, that's good, but see, there's 2 budgets, there's 2 approvals of the budget. There's
Right.
Correct.
the Selectmen and the budget committee. And the budget committee one is the one that goes to. town
But at the
meeting.
end of these meetings, Bob, we'll know where both of us stand on it. I can promise you that.
It's a workshop and it gets voted on later.
And it
correct?
gets voted on, but we at least know where we're gonna be.
Unless there's an agreement that night, you can vote on it.
I don't
So
think
if
we can
everybody
do
agrees
that.
on it that time, they
Hold
can
on.
vote. It's not just a one.
But you don't have.
No, that's all right. Ruben had his hand up, so I just.
So I guess I'm a little confused on the meeting. Are you having the department head just to come in and say, this is my budget, and they go over it?
Yes.
Normally, the selectmen get that budget, they listen to the department head, then the selectmen go back and bring it up again after we've heard the definition of all the lines. We go home, we go review our notes, and we come back and we make that decision.
That's what,
That's what we normally do. It's a 2-step.
Yeah,
that's what I was just.
So I guess what are we doing it now? Calling it a 1-step?
Well, no, my option, my thought was, because I have seen you approve them in the same night, but usually they're small
There's a
budgets.
small.
Small.
So what I was saying is it would be up to the discretion of the board at that point. You have the ability in that workshop to do it at one stop if
Exactly.
it's the elections or, and one of those. But if it's a bigger,
But the thing of it is,
like Public Works or something like that, and you want to, or the police department, the fire department, yeah, then we can provide it. But mainly I was looking to streamline the department head presentation. So that presentation is this, and the boards coordinating the meetings for the boards and the times, it just would move things along a little bit faster so that we had more time to either discuss any issues or make any changements or adjustments before the drop dead date for the public
I
hearing.
say we try it. At least give it a shot for a couple of meetings, in my opinion.
have you run that by the budget committee?
I did. I mentioned it to them before their last meeting. They were going to talk about it as well. The feedback I did get was positive about the idea, but I don't know if I got a full consensus from them.
I think
either
if we
yet.
do that, we might get some more attendees on the other side, you know what I mean? Because it's not just this year. Every year, I've been on the budget committee the last 3 years, and every year, you're lucky to get a quorum to even have a meeting. So if we've got everybody sitting here, maybe they'll say, well, we can hash this out a little easier and you'll get your quorum for both. It's not gonna hurt anything for sure, other than we're gonna be here till 11, 12 o'clock at night, but we can put a cap on that too as well. At what time this is the end? We're not going any later than this.
We also have to determine, is it this, it's a selectmen's meeting and combined with the budget committee, but we have to determine who is chairman. I mean, you are chairman and the chairman of the budget committee, if we get out of order. In other words, we almost need a mediator.
Yeah, I would say-
Someone, okay, let's cool it off a little because you know it's gonna get heated.
Well, somebody has to run the meeting.
Somebody has to run the meeting, and that's where I'm going with that.
Well, I believe that would default to the Board of Selectmen because they're the governing authority when it comes to
Okay,
the
that's what I
boards.
want to make
The
clear.
Budget Committee is advisory.
So the budget committee's gonna have to know that.
Yes, yeah.
And they can always have their own meetings later on if they want somewhere.
They probably
They
will.
can hold any meetings they want.
Yeah, they will.
That's it.
And they can. I just, like you said, it
knives,
maybe,
weapons.
yeah, no gun, no, yeah, no knives or anything.
Oh, the only thing
Chains
is,
only.
the chairman, then you'll have to realize, there's gonna be certain questions asked from the budget committee that really is not their responsibility.
And we,
That's when you have to stand on your feet and say that is not in your authority, you're only here to recommend
Point of order.
or not to recommend.
and I didn't have any problem doing that last year because those came up a lot, but that's, and the other side of that coin is the other selectmen here to say, no, you don't. You know, when I'm sitting, when I'm sitting at the budget meeting, my own, by myself, I don't have the rest of the board to say,
Wait,
Right.
huh?
I always thought I had the board behind me when I told them to it.
You know, yeah, you do, but and because there was many a nights when I was like, you can't do that. That's not your say to say. That needs to go to the Board of Selectmen. But if it's both here, then you've got the answers for the questions right there.
They filled in for you.
I think we try it.
Give it a
Let's,
shot.
do you need a vote on that or is that a consensus as well?
I'm fine with the consensus. I'll run it out to them.
And
to
we
the
can,
board.
we'll try it. And if it don't work, it doesn't work. But if it does, hey, look what we did.
It's all bloody and
Yeah.
going out the door. We know it didn't work.
Yeah, exactly. We got the
Might
table,
not even be
the table flipped
interested.
over and hiding. All right.
I'm sorry, I lied. I have one more. So also in there, in your packet, I didn't know whether or not the board wants to revisit this or not. I did pull, the numbers for selectmen stipends through the other communities. I know at one point the board had made a decision during a tough year. I don't remember what year it was, but I don't know what it was. I don't know why it happened or.
2 years ago, because the budget came in at a certain amount, nobody followed their bottom lines. And then all of a sudden, after they agreed on the budget, they said, oh, sticker shock. So they said, well, you gotta cut the budget, you gotta cut the budget.
So that's where it got cut.
First thing got cut was the selectmen's salary.
Cut the selectmen.
Well, the reason I brought it up for the board to consider and look at it is, you know, there's a lot of time and commitment I know that goes into it and, you know, not to mention, you know, the cost of everything. I mean, I know a lot of you aren't commuting very far, but right now it's probably $10 just to get from the hardware store up here. So I put these numbers together just to give you an idea of what all the surrounding communities are doing. And as you can see that some of them are very generous and, you know, there's a widespread there. But it's just something for the board to consider. Reinstating that, I mean, I think I believe it would be prudent for the fact that we want to encourage people to run. We want to encourage people to take on these roles. It's not a lot of money, but it's enough to possibly offset a little bit of the time and expenses. You know, I can imagine that there's some soft costs, actually hard costs that go into being a board member, especially with all the electronic communications, anything's being printed at your homes and things of that nature. So I did bring this forward to see whether or not the board would like to consider reinstating that for this year moving forward. And then that way I can incorporate.
I'm not gonna send this on Ryan because I asked him to get us some numbers as well, because just for the simple reason that for what he just said, that we want people to run for these positions. That's what it's about, is to get people in here and do this. And when you got to put the amount of time that goes into doing this for absolutely nothing, people are like, well, and you should want to do it for your town, but you shouldn't have to eat it all either. So
Yeah, I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. Personally, word it. Not that I don't need it, but I personally wouldn't take it, but I'm thinking about the future and people that.
Correct.
And so forth. And this gives them, it's a stipend.
There is a lot that goes into it. It's not.
I can't even, what did we used to, what was it budgeted for before? Remember?
No, off the top of my head.
When I looked into
I think it was
it,
$165 a month because we paid it on a monthly basis.
I thought it was like somewhere around
25.
$1,500 or $1,700.
$1,600 or $1,700 per select.
Yeah, per selectman for a
That's
year.
why I said it's about $165.
right around, oh, I thought it was 200, but
Well, that's neither here nor there. We got to make a decision
the
as to
thing
what.
of it is, when I ran for selectman, I never expected or never thought of getting paid.
Right.
I did it for the sole purpose was to try to see if I could help in the town. And that's why I did it. I never expected to get any pay. And I think anybody that runs for selectman is basically the same way. But I do get your point to make it interesting for more people to step up to the plate and do it. But for the last, I think it's been 2 years.
Yeah.
For the last 2 years, we haven't. I'm fine either way.
No, and that's the thing. I mean, I'm not gonna starve to death over $1,500, but somebody else might say, well, geez, I don't want to put that kind of time in for nothing. And then it turns everybody else away. Because I think right now, we're probably the only town in the state of New Hampshire that the selectmen don't get stipend on.
There's a lot of other elected officials that are getting paid in this town, other than the
I do
selectmen.
have to say this, though. We have a lot of committees, a lot of volunteers.
No,
that are all in this, and we can't do it without them.
No, and that's the truth.
And so I feel good about not accepting anything because of all the volunteers and all the committees that are in these boards that don't get paid.
And that's fine.
That's
I
just
just
as
wanted it
equal
on the
amount.
table. I wanted it on the table. I could, it is what it is. Like I said, I'm not gonna lose any sleep over it.
Yeah.
But
No, I think we should reinstate it. I think you should put a line item. But this year in the budget, decide how much, if we want.
Yeah, I believe that, I believe there's still a line item or there's still a budget for
It's still-
a line in there. It's just, I think it's just got a dollar or a zero. Yeah, dollar in it. But that's fine. we can include it in there and I could do some research on what it actually was. I think it was like around $1,700-$1,800, but you know, and just for the public's benefit for this conversation, because they're not looking at the spreadsheet. The towns that we got information from that are all paying out stipends are Gilmington, Wolfboro, Pittsfield, Laconia, Wakefield, Barnstead, Farmington, Milton, Guilford, Meredith, and Belmont. So there's a significant amount of towns. It's not that we just pulled 3 communities around us, you know, as to what it is. And the stipends are ranging from $500 on the low end to $5,500 per selectman on the high end.
You could have
Just
stopped
again,
with
that was for the
Gilmanton and
benefit of the
Wolfboro.
public.
You could have just picked Gilmanton and Wolfboro.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
But yeah, so I just, like I said, I did that for the benefit of the public that's listening to the conversation, but not seeing the paperwork. So,
thank you. That's
all right. So I will include it in the budget and we'll discuss it at the time of
Thank you.
budget hearings, budget meetings. And that is it.
all right.
No, on that side of things, that's it.
All right. Approval of minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the public session minutes, July 11th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thing.
Okay. There was non-publics in there.
What's that?
Was there non-public minutes? I can't even.
No, there
Oh,
is
there
not.
wasn't. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
No, we had no
did have
non-public
one.
last
Okay.
week.
Perfect. Consent agenda.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right. Request for appointments. Timothy Pellowe, intersection of Route 28 and Old Wolfboro Road.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you can just elaborate on that. So Mr. Pello had come down to see me, and we ended up speaking about the intersection. He lives on that intersection right at the end of Old Wolfboro Road, where it crosses over 28. And his concern that he's witnessed a lot of near crashes. He had petitioned the state, or at least contacted the state, about possibly doing something with the intersection or reducing the speed limit. And the state said to him that the town would have to be in support of it, or the town would have to want to go along with that. So he's asking to speak with you folks about his concerns to see whether the town has any interest in trying to do something with that intersection.
That's a bad intersection.
It is. What's the wishes of the board? Do we want to speak with?
I have no problem with listening to him.
I don't have a problem with it.
No problem at all.
Okay,
So
can I get I'll make the motion that we allow Mr. Pellowe to come in and see us.
I second
I'll
that.
second.
I apologize for the pronunciation. I don't know.
hello.
Hello, okay, so I was right, the East go, okay, I get it. I apologize for that. And then next is John Corinne, Sandy Point Waterline Extension.
So Mr. Curran is looking at developing the Sandy Point Resort into something much further. And he had reached out to myself and I believe the water department about possibly some sort of arrangement with extending the town's water line out down Spring Street and down into Sandy Point for this large development proposal he has. And there's some concerns behind that, but he wanted to meet with the selectmen to see where you wanted to take that.
I think there's no problem with that.
No, I have no issue with it.
My vote would be no to extend it.
Mhm.
We shouldn't be in the business of helping something like that to expand. That's a developer that should be paying that on his own, but if you want to meet with them, that's fine. To me, it's not.
But doesn't he have to come to us before he can develop? I don't think he
He
wants us to pay for it.
Might wanna do it himself.
the understanding.
He's looking for you to pay some financial.
Oh, so you guys know something that I don't know.
I didn't know that. I was thinking.
Oh, no,
maybe
no,
he's-
when he reached out, my understanding is he wants the town to. he's looking
Well,
for the
that's
town.
not
Oh,
gonna
that's
happen.
Bear the cost.
No, that's, never mind.
I can go ahead and
Because
answer
of-
that right now.
That's a big no.
Of the user fees and stuff that along those lines.
thought
I
he
didn't
was-
think it would be very
I thought
favorable,
like
but
you. I thought he was looking for the approval just to take it and he could do
The
it.
main thing is the developer can recoup 75% of their cost back from anybody else who hooks into it.
Correct.
And the problem of running that, to me, the extension of that line up Spring Street. You would see somebody trying to force other people to hook into that water main to help. pay
So they
for
can
it.
get their money back.
And that's wrong. Because right now it's either well water or summer line up through there. We should not be in the business of forcing people to start pulling water because that's what
Nope.
we'd have to do to pay for the system. But I feel if the contractor comes in, it's just like when the school went out there. The school had the chance to have town water, but they would not do it because they were going to have to pay for it, but they didn't want to have to charge the other users as they hooked on. The numbers in here look good to me. But the problem is his numbers are going to be a lot better than.
Yeah. And,
It has to be for this sort of project.
Mhm.
But two is, there's a lot, to me, reading about it, there's a lot behind the scenes here going on too.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to get waivers for septics and different septic designs.
it's more, there's more to it than just water lines. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, he can come in and talk to me, tell me what he wants to do, but I'd have to sit there and say, it's not up to that rate the water users, because that's who it would be, the water users paying for that extension.
Mhm.
But I think we should.
We should-
Right. I mean, he might find out he's gonna have to pay for it all.
Right.
Well, that'd be the only way that I would even entertain it is if he paid for the whole line.
Right. And that's maybe, well, we can still discuss it with him.
The amount that it's gonna cost him if he, all once they get water to Sandy Point, that makes Sandy Point year round. You're going to make money, your money back from what you spent on that water line. So if that's how you want to do it,
I don't even know
then
how they-
by all means, that's your responsibility. But like Ruben said, you're not gonna strong arm somebody into going on that line to back for you to bring money back to you.
Well, no, the town water department would have to do that.
Right, yeah, it wouldn't even be them that had to do
would be
it,
a
right.
By state law, if you
Right.
want to run a water main by someone's house, you have the right to charge them.
Correct.
So, which I don't feel, that's right.
But I mean, and then maybe if he would, well, that's another, we can talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah,
But yes, no,
let's
we
just
can
let
come
him-
in.
Let's just let him come in and
Yeah,
talk
let him
and
come
tell
in
us
and-
what he's thinking.
We'll see what he's got to say in
10 minutes,
10 minutes.
10
at
minutes,
most.
10 minutes.
Need a motion. Mr. Chairman, make a motion to allow Mr. Pello.
Nope.
No, John.
Corinne, John
We
Corinne.
Made a motion for Mr. Pello.
Yeah, we did.
No, we did.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Yep, we did.
apologize. Mr. Croonin to come in and talk to us about Sandy Point.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Alrighty. Public input.
Hey.
Kelly's been waiting patiently.
It's hard to wait until the very end, you know. Especially for me. So just just thank everybody for being here. You guys do a lot. And I know everybody gets red faced when you're talking about a stipend or anything like that, but you guys have a lot of committees as well. And to Paul's point there, I mean, half the town is run by volunteer, but you guys do a lot. Budgeting season enough would make me. So a couple of things. I listened to Courtney present earlier, and I just have to say that I am continually impressed with her and Scott both since we have hired them on. Courtney, especially because we hadn't had a water commissioner in a few years. So just to see that the work progress, things just seem to be moving along. I also want to give a shout out to the town planner, Jessica Call. She is unbelievable. All right. Like when I say unbelievable, she can tell you anything. And if she doesn't know right now, she will have the answer for you. Like in short time, she is the most prepared person I've ever seen. And she has so many meetings that she is at. I don't even know how she does it. And I did old story on the community profile. Nick Strong was the planner at the time and asked me to come on. And after she asked me to come on, she was MIA. And I never saw her again. And I couldn't even tell you any other conversations I had with her. So to go from somebody like that to Jessica is like night and day. So I cannot speak highly enough about Jessica. She's and always utmost professionalism. So I really just need to say that. I've had a lot of meetings with Jessica over the last more than a year. The sidewalks down the bay, I'm glad we're kind of getting somewhere with that. That's nice to hear. If we're really worried about money, we could always pave them and maintain them. I do like the idea of having the stamped concrete. The brick is nice. It's great. And I would say go with it if you had that around your town, if it was historically accurate, if our downtown was brick. My hometown is one of the first settled towns on the South Shore. So it was a railroad town. It was a shovel shop. So it has cobblestones. They really revitalized their downtown and it's beautiful. They have cobble walks, that whole thing. So if you had that aesthetic throughout the rest of the town, I could see you putting that money in. I have stated before, I can't see repairing what is there because it's not the best, we'll say. So I like the direction it's going in. Definitely reuse that granite because it's granite. The listening to the conversation about the COLA was interesting to me. And I just appreciate the back and forth and the explanation and just hearing everybody's point of view. I say it all the time. I like the roundtable discussion because it just helps you see things from a different perspective or maybe learn something. I am not one of those people that comes to the table set in stone. I like to hear your thoughts. I like to see what's going on. But it's most important to be fair. I know we're in hard times. Everybody feels it. There's not one person that doesn't feel it. Every week when I go to the grocery store, I say to my own kids, I don't know how young families are doing it nowadays, just at the grocery store alone. All right, never mind fuel and heating your house and the whole shebang. So when it comes to employee raises and retention, that's definitely a tricky slope, and I get that. It's important to retain good employees, but it's also important to realize that the times we're in will hopefully not be long, right? So we don't want to make rash jump decisions this year and then all of a sudden it come about. So I was happy to see you guys come to an agreement, but then realize that we can look at it again next year. Because sometimes when you're in the middle of a conversation, you sometimes lose sight of that one little fact that's actually really important. Oh, we can relook at this next year and this is not holding us to 10 years. So I just wanted to just say that I appreciated that.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Very much.
Thank you, Kelly. Anybody else? All right, that being said, I will entertain a motion to go into, enter into non-public meeting per RSA 91A:32 under A, D, and E. Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Are you gonna do a roll call?
Roll call, sorry. Bob?
Yay.
Andrew?
Yay.
Ruben?
Yep.
Paul?
Yes.
Me, yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Stacy.
So who made the motion?
I made the
Did you make the
motion.
motion?